Hey, John Tzortzis here. And to go on another self-journey, one must first be like a little baby, ready to go on one's first steps. I'm a little baby. Are you a little baby? And what do babies do? They expect the unexpected. Meow.
Hi there, John. It is Hannah here, and welcome to your Access All Areas reading. So, I just wanted to jump on here quickly to say hello to you and to, of course, thank you so much for booking this reading. We're really going to look over a lot of things today, so I hope that you do enjoy it and I hope that you get what you need from your experience overall. And you know what, as well, I just hope that things are practical for you too. Okay, so with all of that being said, let's dive right in. Okay, John, so firstly, to begin your reading, I just want to address this question about grace. So I am currently looking at your astrocartography map, and yes, we notice here that the Jupiter midheaven line as well as the Mercury midheaven line, very close there. So whenever we think about those particular lines running through Greece as a destination for you to move to, we could look at this as quite a time of learning, right? So a lot of knowledge will be gained, plenty of exploration, could even be a sense of feeling pretty content, joyous, being quite a communicator, being quite a proactive communicator. Learning, of course, the language as well and being open to other languages. Perhaps even with you having Mercury and Jupiter conjunct your ascendant, we could see this as you already knowing one or two languages, perhaps two or more. Also, what I find interesting here is that whenever we draw a chart, so whenever we look to those coordinations on the map, there is a chart that is drawn, and for both destinations I checked, Sagittarius is on the rising, and then that massive Virgo stellium you have moves into this 10th house area, this midheaven point. So what does this mean in layman's terms? Firstly, with Sagittarius on the rising, this can be a big indicator of you having this larger than life demeanor whilst you are in that particular part of the world. This could be a case of you taking risks, you feeling this sense of adventure and really wanting to explore and to expand your mind, coming across as quite optimistic and positive, even coming across as very likable and social and super friendly, super engaging. Could even be a case of exciting new opportunities presenting themselves. And to think about this further, with the Jupiter midheaven line being quite nearby to both destinations, really, we could see this as potential work opportunities, right? Certain jobs or roles or positions you can take on, perhaps related to teaching, for example, and sharing of your knowledge. Even this could be a case of you becoming trained within a particular area, right? And that area, it could involve you using your hands a great deal. Why am I saying this? Because Jupiter itself is in Virgo. Virgo is a very practical sign. It's very much about, okay, let's perfect our skills. Let's use our skills, okay? Using the hands as well is very much highlighted here. You know, maybe being quite gifted basically when it comes to using your hands, or even I look at this as you being quite a swift learner, but hey, still you needing to process information in a slow internal way too. But I do notice this wit, I do notice this studious part of you strongly. So yes, I think we could see how that particular area of the world, it could involve work, it could involve service, it could involve excellence, performance, and you really being recognized in a large way, perhaps by others, right? Recognized for your efforts, for your services, your gifts. And at the same time, I think that Greece could be a place where you really go wild in a way, where you let your hair down. There's a freedom, I think, that will be very much present. And I even want to mention that what's important to note is the fact that Jupiter in your chart, if we're to think about the Hellenistic view, which is more of a traditional technique used in astrology, Jupiter in your chart is considered to be quite a pleasing area, right? Jupiter can be about luck and abundance and prosperity. So in this way, perhaps moving to that or near that Jupiter midheaven line, you may find that you feel this sense of optimism and enthusiasm regarding your public image, regarding your public persona, or your sense of achievement and accomplishment. So those are the very areas that could be highlighted in this really beneficial way, this rewarding way. Again, we do want to think about this within the context of Jupiter in Virgo. So maybe let's just take some time to explain what Jupiter in Virgo is all about. Of course, you do have Jupiter in Virgo natally, and it is very close to the ascendant. So the ascendant, first and foremost, is all about our appearance. It's very much about our life path, our life direction, and our outlook on life. So we start from the ascendant, and what we do is we really head out into the world and we approach new situations and experiences. So we do this basically through the lens of the ascendant. So with the ascendant being in the sign of very conscientious Virgo, we see this perfectionism when it comes to you. We see this more focus on details, this greater focus on details. Your, I suppose, automatic way of dissecting information, breaking it down, making it tangible, making it usable, making it practical. And so what we notice when it comes to you is you are continuously analyzing your environment, perhaps seeing what could be improved, what you could add to, what you could take away, how things can be more aligned or well suited, well fitted. We even see here that when it comes to your very appearance, you may be quite focused on little things about your body, about your clothing, about how you look essentially, and you'll notice those little details. And I also see this as you really going overboard in a large way when it comes to those very areas. Why is this? Well, this is where Jupiter indeed comes in. So Jupiter is this planet of expansion. It really is about increasing, amplifying whatever it touches. So yes, this can manifest as your detail-orientated nature being amplified, right? Increasing. This can also manifest as you worrying a great deal or being a rather great problem solver. You may be very good at coming up with solutions to things, and doing so in ways where your plan, your solution, it not only serves you, but it serves other people. We see here your helpfulness. We see here how concerned you can be about others and wanting to assist them in some way, shape, or form. And we also see that these are the kinds of qualities and attributes that were, in a way, placed onto you. They were reinforced strongly growing up. So I imagine you being really young and being the child who had to get everything right, who might have felt the pressures of needing to be perfect, and anything that was out of order or unclean or wrong, that could have been sort of processed as you being bad or wrong or incorrect, or you must do better, you must improve. Now, one way to look at this is, yes, we can see it as a positive thing. We can see this as you really taking this approach of, okay, I am willing to work on myself, I am willing to improve, and that's great. However, this can also manifest in such a way where you go overboard, where you critique and criticize yourself, you criticize others, you read into things a lot, you overthink. Again, we see the excessive worrying, we see the stress, we see here your nervous system being really shaky, and we see the challenge here, I suppose, a lot of challenge to do with quieting your mind. The challenge here to do with being okay with who you are, or feeling content within your own skin. Now, with that being said, I do understand that you are in your 50s, right? So you may be listening to this thinking to yourself, Hannah, I've been there before, that's not me anymore, I'm a lot more calmer within myself. And so that's really, really good. And I suppose too, whenever we look to your progressions, we do notice that many of the planets that you have in Virgo, they have moved on into other signs. So I'm really just bringing that up because we do notice greater balance, or we do even notice your ability to challenge the part of you that may be overly worrisome, if you will, right? So yes, I just wanted to acknowledge that. Still, I think equally with so much Virgo, I think it can often manifest as there's just always something to improve. And at the same time, if we were to look at this from a place of strength, we see here that when it comes to the work you do, for example, you don't want to just do a good job, you want to do an excellent job, which I think is to be valued and appreciated about yourself, very much so. Also, we can look at this as the fact that you don't let things just rest or be, maybe that within itself helps you keep motivated or keep moving or keep doing things that you really, you need to do or that you would like to do. So there is this, I would say, this striving influence within you, this expansive influence, this, I'm always willing to improve. I'm always willing to, ask myself, right, okay, well, what could I have done better in that situation? And when you figure out, okay, what you could have done better, I do think that you are able to learn. I think with Jupiter, especially being conjunct the ascendant, you keep it moving. And what I mean by that is you're continuously willing to evolve and grow and to change things. I even see this as you being willing enough to change your environment, to change your surroundings. So anytime in life, whenever you've been caught up in maybe unhealthy relationships, or you've been caught up in maybe environments, relationships that don't serve you anymore, your body knows so well. And so the beauty of this Virgo influence is that you listen. You're able to listen to your body. Now, having said that, maybe this is also a part of the challenge. And the challenge here, I think, is between the mind and the body. So maybe what you often find difficult to know or to assess is a particular decision you're making coming from this mental place of, okay, it's well informed, you've thought everything through, or could it even be that you read into things too much, you overthink, you overanalyze, and then you might stay in certain situations that you don't actually enjoy. And then I guess a part of that challenge, that difficulty too, is whenever your body is trying to send you signals, it's trying to send messages to you about maybe something you're uncomfortable with, something that you don't like. How do you listen to your body? Do you analyze it mentally, or try to more so think about things from a logical standpoint? Are you able to step back and sort of say, hold on a second, what is happening? What's happening with my nervous system? Why am I getting so wound up by this? Because this is the thing with this Virgo influence, so much of it can be this indicator of you being highly strung, of you being easily wound up by others, or very sensitive even, sensitive to other people's feedback, sensitive to other people's criticisms. And especially with the moon there, the moon is about our emotions, it's about our sensitivities. So I wonder about times when you can take things very, very personally and to heart. I wonder about others possibly challenging you in life and then how you feel about those things. But then I also wonder about possible justifications for other people's behavior as well, and how long you stay within certain relationships. And it's interesting because we also see that Venus is this planet of love, relationships. It's a very social planet. So Venus is in Virgo conjunct Pluto, and Pluto is about renewal, transformation, loss, grief, death, right? So we could look at this potentially through a lens of manipulative tactics, or through a lens of power struggles, power plays that have occurred throughout your life when it comes to romance and love. We think about possible confusion tied to those very relationships and partnerships, kind of questioning, is this real? Is this really happening? What is going on? We see this further with the fact that the sextile is occurring between Neptune, this planet of illusion and confusion. So yeah, the sextile between Neptune and that Venus and Pluto in the chart. And then equally with Uranus pretty nearby, Uranus is very much this planet of rebellion and breaking free. So point being, I'm wondering, John, about the very dynamics that you have experienced within your relationships. I'm wondering about even a lot of the times the image that you give off, the way that maybe you show up within the world, and that could be this way where you're so excessively helpful, understanding, empathetic, courteous, trying to do your best. You wouldn't turn people away who are looking for your support. I wonder about that part of you being manipulated, controlled, others coming in and trying to dominate, you having to learn a few hard truths about your boundaries, about you being able to step back and say, hold on a second, this is not good. This is not good for me. I need to walk away from this. And then I wonder about possible cycles, possible patterns that repeat time and time again. So this is interesting, it really is, because the other thing about it to add, I suppose, is the fact that the South Node, right, the South Node is very much about our comfort zone. The South Node is in Libra, the sign of relationships and partnerships. And the other thing to add to this is that the secondary progressed moon right now is very close. It's drawing very close to that south node point. So why is this important? I think there is this emotional breaking free influence right now for you. I'm getting from this wanting to run away, wanting to get away from, it could be a particular job, it could be a particular relationship, it could be an old narrative tied to your self-worth, your self-esteem. And indeed, so with the South Node being in Libra, we see this possible tendency, this cycle basically of you being codependent, of you repeating the same kinds of cycles within relationships, the same kinds of partners that come up time and time again, or feeling a bit like, why can I not seem to let go of this situation and put myself first? What is so devastating about that? What is so painful about that? And this is where we see then that the North Node is in Aries, and it's kind of calling at you, and it's trying to say, look over here, I'm trying to get you to address your independence, your individuality. I'm trying to get you to see that you are worth so much more than that, and that you can put yourself first, you can make yourself a priority. But here's the other thing, Chiron is also there in Aries in the 8th house. So this journey that I talk about, it's triggering, it's confronting, almost like a big part of your soul's purpose, right? Because the nodes are about soul's purpose. You may not believe in that, but it's just something that, you know, the nodes represent. But it could be that a big part of your soul's purpose is very much tied to you exploring your subconscious, exploring possibly the occult, exploring more of these hidden practices, right? So we think about astrology here, for instance. Then again, this could also be about trying to take a deeper look into your psychology through therapists or through certain treatments, right? So basically, this suggests that to go on this journey towards greater insight and emotional discovery, Chiron says that it can be painful, it can be wounding. It's like a part of you that is so exposed and is vulnerable. And that within itself may be really, really scary, because you're forced in a way to address something that is so close, is so intimate and private. See, the 8th house is a very private house. The 8th house is about the things that we lock away, the things that we bury, the things that we deny, or we're just not willing to face, we're not ready to face. And so with Chiron there, I wonder about the past. I wonder about past attacks, past issues with control, or past issues with manipulation, which may have really triggered your sense of self, your identity. What's coming through here is being cut off, right? Cut off from people, or what's coming through here is loss or grief and sorrow and the agony of certain emotions. So the North Node, to bring it back to the North Node, I think that basically by exploring what is hidden and locked away, this is a part of your journey, and maybe you have already embarked on that journey, right? You have, and through such experiences, you have maybe outgrown certain relationships. And I think to myself about how you did experience a nodal return, right? So what I mean by this is throughout half of 2023, so July of 2023 and throughout 2024, the nodes were in Aries and Libra. So with you already having the North Node in Aries and then the South Node in Libra, you experienced a nodal return. So that return throughout around about 2024 could have been really eye-opening for you. I wonder about the endings of particular relationships. I wonder about even certain narratives that you outgrew. I wonder about certain ways of maybe earning money or making a living, maybe addressing your assets and weighing out your options there, getting things in place. See, you did say about this move, right? So moving to Greece in the next 6 months, I am sure that that took a lot of having to weigh things out, having to go over a plan, having to make adjustments financially so that you can afford the trip and everything else, and how long you're going to go for and what you're going to do, right? And then I'm curious about what triggered that, you know, or maybe a better way to put that is, how did that experience come about for you? And I can't help but think or speculate that such a trip is very much a part of an after story. It's like, okay, a particular situation has ended financially, security wise, relationship wise, and so maybe you're at a point, John, where you feel ready, right? You feel more equipped to move on, possibly to do something for yourself. And well, do you know what? This is actually what leads me on to another point, and it is to do with your Mars return. So we talked about the North Node return that recently happened for you, but the Mars return, it's going on right now. So if we were to look at this, Mars right now is at 14 degrees. I'm recording this segment of your reading on the 19th of May. So yes, what we see here is that Mars is very much close to your natal Mars. What does a Mars return suggest? Well, the Mars return happens around about every 2.5 years or so, and what maybe has came up for you very strongly lately is that of reevaluating, reviewing your goals, thinking over the next step. And these goals, I think, have been looked at and assessed more so throughout 2024 as well, right? Especially towards the end of 2024, because Mars did begin its retrograde from Leo actually at the end of 2024. And basically Mars retrogrades are a time of review and reevaluation. Mars is about our goals. Mars is about our drive. So with the Mars return now, this suggests a new cycle, right? A new 2.5 year cycle where maybe you feel like, you know what, you're ready to wipe the slate clean. You're ready to make things happen, to follow the things that you want to do within your heart, right? It's very much about this passion, this enthusiasm, this strength. I see this as you showcasing a lot of bravery, you showcasing a lot of courage, even to think about how Mars rules the North Node, is making a trine to the North Node. So there is something quite spiritually aligned about this next step for you. There's something here about your own healing journey, your own recovery. There's something here about retreating, escaping, needing to get away, needing just something for yourself. And I also see this as you showcasing great leadership, advocating for yourself, being able to say that, you know what, with all of your Virgo stuff going on in the first house, there is only so much you can do for other people. There is only so much you have to give energetically. There's only so much help you can give, so much assistance you can give. I feel like Mars in the 12th house in Leo often is left starving. It's left so thirsty. It's left needing attention, right? And maybe you're used to just kind of going, no, I don't need the attention. I'm going to give my attention to others. And that's not necessarily a bad way to be, but it's more so that we see the extremes of this kind of behavior. We see the, oh, that's fine, we'll just sweep that under the rug, we'll just let that go. But what happens then is things start to build and build and build, and then you're left possibly feeling resentful, possibly feeling bitter, possibly feeling unseen, unloved, undervalued, undermined, all those kinds of things. And then I guess it just gets to a breaking point. And I can't help but think that even with Uranus, right? So Uranus is also in Virgo, and it's very close to Pluto there as well. And then Pluto is close by to Venus and Mercury. It's almost like Uranus says, well, you know what? I still value my independence. I still need my freedom. I still need to be able to break away from situations that I know within my heart of hearts I have outgrown. And there is this sense of liberation, I think. Plus, you know what? Mars is so much about how we stand up for ourselves. Mars is so much about how we can assert ourselves within the world. So to have Mars in the 12th, it seems like the way that you assert yourself, stand up for yourself, you know, it's hidden, it's controlled, it's possibly seen as, oh, well, we'll not look at that. That can wait. And so to bring this back to Mars residing in the 12th house with your Mars return happening in current times, we see this part of you that is able to say no more. Or we see this desire, this willingness to make a change, or this desire to push back and have some kind of freedom and autonomy. We also see this enthusiasm, this inspiration, this fighting spirit basically within you that is there. It's there, it's present, you feel it within yourself. It's the part of you that you go to sleep. You know, you go to sleep basically feeling that part of you, knowing that part of you, connecting with it. It may not necessarily be that you show this Mars and Leo energy outwardly to the world, right? So this part of you that is very much about your own creativity and passions and interests and everything. Yeah, you may not necessarily show those types of aspects of yourself outwardly to the world, but you connect with it in different ways. I actually see this as you being really quite active about your creative gifts or interests behind the scenes, maybe being quite the performer, the entertainer. You really possibly even secretly enjoying drama, you know, sort of dramatic scenes and movies that are very dramatized, or music that's very loud and quite poppy possibly, music that makes you dance, gets you into a groove, gets you into a rhythm. Yeah, I just think that there's such a way that you play essentially behind the scenes, and it's almost like you're just waiting for that part of you to come out, and it does come out, I think, in other ways. I think it can come out in ways when you are very comfortable, you're very safe with others, you feel seen. I think this part of you also comes out possibly whenever you're under the influence. Plus, what also comes to mind is retreating, spiritually so. So, for example, this can manifest as you taking a leadership role, taking on a leadership position as you lead a spiritual retreat, or as you take on a program and it is about moving your body, it's about being active, it's about being fun, enjoying yourself. And what also comes to my mind is, due to how the 12th house is about our dreams and our subconscious, I am curious about the kinds of dreams you have about performing or being heroic, being this leader who can take charge and who can lead the pack, lead the group with dignity and with honor, with virtue. So yes, I think that these are the kinds of qualities and attributes that you really connect with deeply. Now, with that being said, let's try and explore this Saturn influence, right? Because Saturn is located in Aries and is, of course, retrograde. So we touched on the North Node in this area of your chart. We touched briefly on Chiron. But Saturn is very much about what is responsible, what is slow and gradual. Saturn is about how we show integrity, how we discipline ourselves, self-mastery. And what's going to come up for you over the next coming years is your second Saturn return. All right, so the second Saturn return happens around about 60s, okay? So close to our 60s, towards the ends of our 50s, about that. And it's really a time for us to check in on our Saturn journey. So what does that actually mean in layman's terms? Well, Saturn in Aries in this position can suggest blockages and tests and challenges tied to that of leadership, tied to that of your identity. We see hard truths and hard lessons related to your impulses, your anger, your temper, your impatience. And so maybe in a large way, you have addressed those very blockages and challenges throughout your life. You have overcome certain obstacles, and maybe you are at a point, John, where you feel like you're not as impulsive, you're not as reckless, or it's that you feel more in control of your impulses, your temptations, and things of that nature. Though another possible way to look at this is you even coming to learn how to be proactive or how to assert yourself, to be a bit more confident about your life's decisions, right? So about the decisions you make, it's about, okay, you've made that decision and you face the consequences of that decision. See, with Saturn being in Aries, especially combined with your Libra energy and Chiron in Aries, we do see possible indecision or insecurities about making decisions. Then I'm also curious about the kinds of ways that you were able to or not able to make decisions for yourself growing up. I wonder about that. I wonder, is it that you grew up with a particular parental figure who was quite domineering or who was very controlling or bossy, or things had to be their way? And it's almost like you couldn't do anything right. There was always just something else that would come up and you felt this pressure. Maybe you felt those pressures to be perfect, to make the correct, quote unquote, correct decision, to never make mistakes. And so maybe this kind of dynamic, it created this fear, it created this uncertainty. So Saturn in Aries, I think, in a large way, is about, okay, how about you take that leap? How about you go to that place or you make that change in your life? Basically, it's this question of what is on the other side of your fear. And then also it's a case of how might you as the individual be getting in your own way. And yes, I also can see that it's often our circumstances, it's often the people we surround ourselves with that can result in us experiencing blockages and setbacks and things like that. And we see that with the South Node being in Libra too. But I still think that over the next coming years, this is going to be such an awakening for you, or it's going to be a time of great growth and great maturity and a lot of learning, and you being able to say, do you know what, yeah, I overcame that, I did that, I went for it, and I didn't shy away, I didn't hide in the corner. I think this is where a lot of your transformation occurs. Transformation tied to responsibility, tied to accountability, to be accountable for your decisions, to be accountable for your actions. And that, of course, can manifest as you, for example, making a decision, going for it, so being active, and then whatever follows from that, it's like, right, okay, you'll deal with it then. You will learn from it then. Rather than this sitting on the fence, or rather than maybe even possibly the subconscious thing here is wanting other people to make decisions for you, wanting them to come along and validate you and say, hey, yeah, this is it, this is what you need to do. Again, I'm really curious about how these kinds of feelings or inner workings, how they came to be for you, and which kinds of experiences did you have when it came to being independent, essentially. So that developmental stage of you possibly, going out into the world and saying, right, okay, I'm going to provide for myself, I'm going to make my own life, I'm going to create. So I wonder about the criticisms, I wonder about the feedback you received, and the possible back and forth over should I do this, should I not do this. So to follow on from this, yes, we want to mention the fact that Saturn is at the apex. So it's the apex planet when we think about how, so Neptune is making that sextile to, I would say, the Venus influence, Pluto more strongly there, a bit of Uranus. And then we also notice that those Virgo planets and Neptune are making the inconjunctions to Saturn. Well, this is where we notice this driving force, this push to really show up and to take responsibility for yourself. Saturn is such a point of growth and transformation for you. And I think as well, this is about getting out of your own way. See, remember earlier I was talking about this Venus-Pluto influence, and I was mentioning briefly about how relationships throughout your life have reached a bit of a breaking point, and how potential power dynamics have even shown up within your relationships as well, right? But then you see, what we also notice with Neptune is Neptune can be this part of the chart that shows us wearing rose-colored glasses. For example, this can manifest as seeing what we want to see in someone, praying that they will change, but they never do, but we're just holding on to faith or hope or wishful thinking, I guess. We can wear rose-colored glasses by idealizing the other person, by seeing them as beautiful or as perfect. And we can also then put things to the side, put how we really feel about a relationship matter to the side. And so this is maybe what has, in a way, unfolded for you. And what's further important to add to this is, well, Black Moon Lilith is opposite Neptune by the same degree. So what does this suggest? Well, Black Moon Lilith is so much about us tapping into our personal power. Black Moon Lilith can show up as us being cast out, being shunned, being really put down, and others trying to manage us, trying to control us. So those kinds of dynamics, I'm just basically wondering how those kinds of dynamics played out or have played out within your relationships, right? Because even Black Moon Lilith is making those trines to especially Pluto, I would say, and then Pluto is still conjunct Venus. And then I also wonder about the confusion that's been present there. And with this influence happening within the 9th, 3rd houses, this stuff can show up as being very philosophical, very much tied to your worldviews, your belief systems, the narratives you tell yourself, the stories you tell yourself, so your thought processes. We also think about here possibly your early conditioning, sort of the script that was given to you in a large way about, oh, you need to do this, you need to be this way. I'm really curious about this strong desire within you to break free, to believe in the things that you want to believe in, to not conform to what other people want you to think or want you to believe. And I'm wondering here about fixed views from religious people, from teachers, from professors. So for example, this could have manifested as you growing up in a really religious household. We do see that with Jupiter conjunct the ascendant as well. You growing up surrounded by people who essentially wanted you to believe in what they believed in. And then any time that you would question or any time that you would challenge, it would be met with resistance, or you would be left feeling confused. Yeah, I think here there is something in you feeling uncertain about the next step because there was such a challenge within you growing up to do with making your own decisions, right? To me, this makes sense, because if it was that you were in a way conditioned to maybe believe in what others believed and to never challenge, to never question, then it can almost feel like your own mind isn't trustworthy. As if to say that, well, who am I going to turn to? Who is there to give me the answer? I need the answer. So to me, I think Saturn in Aries holds a lot of power for you. It holds a lot of growth, because it's like Saturn in Aries is this point of great strength for you, of great resilience, of you being able to say, no, this is who I am. And I'm not here to be told who I am. I'm here to be myself. And I think also Saturn in Aries speaks to you being more decisive, right? To make a decision. Like I was trying to say, it's to be firm in your decision making, and to be okay as well with setting healthy boundaries, right? To set healthy boundaries between yourself and others. Now, I'm really talking about this on a very psychological level with Saturn in the 8th house. But of course, John, this can also show up practically. So this is where I think getting things in order for yourself is also important. It's like you being at this point in your life, or you experiencing a good amount of years of you having to say, hold on, I need to support myself. I need to provide for myself. I can't have people trying to control or dictate or tell me how to be here, because it just seems like I'm never going to get out of that cycle, then that entrapment. If this is what I'm getting from this energy, this entrapment, this enslavement, this what feels very oppressive. So to get yourself organized practically too, and to be able to save, to be able to patiently pay off debts, to pay off certain, finances, to basically be able to say, hold on, I don't need to depend on that anymore, that person anymore, that job anymore, that business anymore. Maybe Saturn in Aries does in a way speak to how you can take greater control of your shared assets or shared resources, accounts, things like that. And of course, we can look at this through a lens of making sure that your taxes are paid, or making sure that all debts are paid off and you're not tied to things, if you will. Now, with that being said, this could also manifest as you feeling a bit like, oh my gosh, there's just so much I need to get through, things are piling up, the bills, and I've all this other stuff happening and it's so stressful for me, right? So there could be some of that going on, but maybe what your second Saturn return is going to usher in, it's going to maybe usher in this greater planning, this greater strategy, this greater discipline, a process that you can put in place for yourself, so that you can support yourself. Hey, but you know what? Equally, due to how Saturn does rule your 5th house and your 6th house, yes, but with the 5th house, it's about children. So on that note, what comes to mind here is you still supporting children, supporting your business, if it is that there is a kind of tie to a business, or there's a tie to a certain loan that you're trying to pay off. If it is that you're trying to maybe pay off a divorce, right? So there could be a divorce settlement in place here. It could also be a case of you maybe wanting to move with your family, with your spouse, right? So there could be other people involved, essentially. This is what I'm getting at. There could be other people's money involved, other responsibilities, other commitments you have to people within your life, financially speaking, practically speaking. I'm even considering here paying off a certain mortgage, or looking into getting a mortgage, looking into you saving up for something that's shared, right? So a shared asset, a shared resource, could be with your spouse, could be with your significant other, it could be with a business partner, it could be for family purposes, family reasons. And what's even further interesting to note about that is Jupiter will be moving into Cancer, so June, 9th of June of 2025 for a year. So Jupiter will be entering this family sign, the home sign of Cancer. And do remember that Jupiter rules your 4th house of family and home. So we could literally see this as this shift, this transit, as representing a significant move, as representing a significant family shift. And also you expanding your social circles, your networks, your groups, expanding upon really supportive, nurturing communities. So something that is quite interesting I've noticed is actually how Venus is making more of a biquintile to Saturn, right? So biquintiles can often point towards gifts, but it's about the effort that we put into really building upon those gifts. We got to put something into this particular aspect. So what can this suggest? I mean, this could very well suggest a business gift. This could suggest some kind of talent that you have when it comes to organizing your finances. You might be quite serious, disciplined, and committed when it comes to financial matters, when it comes to building for the future here, investing in your future. Maybe even since your first Saturn return would have happened around about the time you were 30, right? So since then, you have got to work. Even with so much Virgo, very much a busy bee, just very busy, very conscientious, dedicated, very focused on how you can not only be there to help and assist others, but there is this sense of dedication to your personal goals and ambitions. And to think also that the 8th house, it can be quite a wealthy house, right? It can show up as inheritances, large sums of money, investments, business ventures. So to have the North Node there in Aries as well as Saturn, it does seem like a big part of your purpose, a big part of your direction in this life is geared towards that of making things happen within those very areas, right? Being this trailblazer, being a pioneer, showcasing independence, showcasing this drive to be driven, to be somewhat resilient and relentless. Okay, so now let's even consider how there's quite a bit going on in the 7th house. I want to take a moment to explore the 7th house area because, well, Pisces is on the descendant, and the very ruler of your descendant, Jupiter, well, the traditional ruler, is located opposite, conjunct the ascendant. So what this can indicate is that a big part of your goals and aims very much tied to could be marriage, partnerships, business deals, contracts, agreements. And I think that you may be attracted to partners who they showcase a great deal of sensitivity and empathy and compassion, but equally they can also show up as being quite hands-on, practical, possibly matter of fact. But then the other thing about this is because the descendant is in Pisces, maybe something that you are not necessarily aware of within yourself, or maybe you have come to understand these qualities I'm about to say, but such qualities could be where you show up as quite idealistic within your one-to-one relationships. Maybe you can even be quite the hopeless romantic, or it's like you project your fantasies, your dreams onto your partners. Could also be a case of you getting lost in the relationship or losing a sense of, well, a piece of your identity, a piece of yourself. Could also be a lack of boundaries. And here's the thing, Neptune has been transiting that 7th house for you for the past 14 years, right? And now Neptune did recently enter Aries at the end of March. We'll be there for a few months, but basically over the past 14 years, we have seen this sort of uncertainty, this fog, this haze that has been created, this possibility of wanting to be rescued or saved, or you wanting to be the one who rescues or saves others. So with Neptune now out of Pisces for a short period of time, maybe a lot of epiphanies have been coming up for you, a lot of realizations, as if you have waken up from a dream, as if the fog has been lifted, as if you've taken off the rose-colored glasses and you see things for what they are, not for how you wish them to be. And then what's going to be interesting is Saturn is going to move into the 8th house for you, and that will happen around about the 24th of May or so, for a few months. And so you're about to approach this new chapter, actually. This new chapter to do with those shared accounts, shared resources, to do with intimacy, emotional bonding, trust, safety, all those kinds of things. Also, we can look at this through a lens of loss there. So it's almost like you're approaching this starting over energy, or it's that you're going to be welcomed with new commitments, new responsibilities. And the other thing to add to this then, for you to be aware, John, is both Neptune and Saturn will re-enter Pisces throughout 2025, more so towards the middle of 2025 for the rest of the year. So with those celestial bodies being in the 7th, that will be a good opportunity for you to clear space, which has already been happening, but it really will be a good time for you to just reflect, check in, ask yourself, okay, is there anything I've overlooked? Is there anything I've forgotten about? Perhaps older relationship dynamics will resurface. For example, if it is that you've made a certain change over recent months tied to relationships, tied to partnerships, it could very well be that situation resurfaces towards the end of 2025. And so it's sort of an opportunity for you to go back in and think, okay, well, how would I like to respond to this situation? Is this what I actually want moving forward? Or is this about me being reminded of my boundaries, right? That's another question you could ask yourself, right? Because I think to a large extent, Saturn in Pisces since March of 2023, so from March 2023 all the way up until present times, Saturn in Pisces has been a way for you to establish healthier boundaries in your life. If it has been a way for you to operate from a more responsible way, where you go, you know what, I'm not responsible for other people's emotions, right? The pity parties, right? The woe is me, I can't live without you, I'm so distraught about this situation. You know, you get brought back in, you get taken back in, and almost like you have to be the one who saves, you have to be the one who is there for others, but then that within itself is so completely one-sided. So I can't help but think that these are the kinds of themes and lessons that have been strongly emphasized for you relationship-wise, partnership-wise. And then what's going to happen, John, is both Saturn and Neptune will officially enter into your 8th house from around about February of 2026. And that will basically officially close off a chapter for you, that relationship chapter. Now, having said that, the North Node...
Okay. It's John here. I've been listening throughout this whole recording here with Hannah, and Hannah has been spot on the whole time. Like, for instance, right now, Saturn moving into Pisces in March 2023. Yeah, when that happened, I was fed up. I was so fed up. I was in Narcotics Anonymous at the time, and they were such fucking pieces of shit, these people. They stopped talking about God as a solution. They stopped talking about God as anything. They're like, you know, when I would talk about God, they would look at me like strange. It's like, you motherfuckers, man. On the symbol, it says self-society, service, and God, you bitch. And they're not talking about fucking God. Fuck them. So what did I do? Saturn entered Pisces in March 2023. June 2023, I got the fuck out of there. I said, fuck you to all those motherfuckers in Narcotics Anonymous. I said, suck my pinky finger. Go ahead, open your mouth. Suck my pinky finger, bitch. Fuck. These people are so fucking fucked up, man. And basically for about a year, October of 2022, I started going to, probably earlier, probably like August, September, around my birthdays, when I started going to AA meetings, AA meetings, you know, Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. And I went to one a week AA and one a week NA. And I was doing that for like a long time, since about August, September of 2022. And it was terrible. You know, it was terrible. NA was terrible. But when I went to AA, because I went with this guy DiViNiTY, and he was really cool, and he basically told me, he goes, yeah, John, they talk about God in AA. And every single meeting I've been to since I started going in 2022, September, let's say, everyone's been talking, every meeting that I go to, they always talk about God as a solution. Every meeting. You know, when I went to Greece in May, in 2024, when I went to Greece, it was 2024 that I that I left the Narcotics Anonymous. June 2024 was the last time I left there, and July 2024 is I officially went to AA, and I got a sponsor, and now I have a sponsor, and I have a program there, and I go to meetings, and I'm working steps right now. So, yeah. And another thing, my nodal return, when that happened, my first nodal return, that's when I started getting clean from Narcotics Anonymous. When I joined Narcotics Anonymous, my nodal return was around when I was 27 years old. So my Saturn return was then too. My Saturn return was when I was around 30, 29, 30. So and back then I turned my life around and I started using drugs. And I was working for my mom's apartment building. So my dad passed away when I was 18 and a half. And that's when my progressed Mars moved over I think my son. And one astrologer told me about that. And Astro Victor told me about that. And basically that's when my father died. Exactly when my father died, when my progressed when my progressed Mars was over my natal sun. And my mom, she died when my nodal return came in 2023 July. I had the nodal return, Aries. Nodes were in Aries, and my mom passed away in June 2023. So right after my mom passed away, I had my nodal return. And basically, me and my sister, we sold my mom's apartment buildings, we sold my mom's house, we sold fucking everything. And that's why I'm going to fucking Greece, I got nothing here in Chicago, nothing, nobody. And this past Saturn return, this past Saturn in Pisces, for the past since 2023, I basically got rid of all of my friends. Fuck you, I said to fucking all of them. I said, suck my pinky finger, bitch. Fuck them all. And I don't have any friends right now. I have new friends that I've made in AA. I got a sponsor, some acquaintances. I go to a salon on a regular basis where creative people meet every month. And then I go to open mics. So the guy who runs the salon talks to us about it, and we meet there, and we have a great time. Oh my god, I haven't had this much fun in a long time. Fucking NA, fuck you, motherfuckers in NA. If any of you are listening, suck my pinky finger, bitch. Fuck. And now this is a new chapter in my life. So let's go down with the reading.
We'll continue on through the 7th house, right, until about, I would say, July time of 2026, around about that time. And so that's a good way to really reflect upon, okay, spiritually speaking, what's coming up. I think the North Node, since the beginning of 2025 and all the way until about the summer of 2026, the North Node in your 7th is a good way for you to get into alignment with what your spiritual values are within relationships. Maybe a lot to do with trust, a lot to do with surrender, surrendering to the unknown. So if it is, for instance, that there have been certain, it could be narratives, it could be stories, it could be physical relationships that have gradually just faded away, came to a close. The North Node, I think, acts as this assisting force, this supportive force, in that hopefully you can approach things in more of a holistic way, more of a compassionate way. Maybe self-forgiveness comes up. Maybe it is about being able to say, you know what, yeah, I can see what role I played within that relationship dynamic, and I'm going to take responsibility for it, and I'm going to move forward, I'm going to move on, and try to just remember that you can begin a new cycle. You can start over if you want to start over. And again, it could be that this trip that you talk about, this move that you talk about, is in some way, shape or form a part of that starting over. Essentially, John, I think this is about you leaning into the North Node in Pisces. And that could be quite the challenge given how you have so much Virgo going on in the opposite way, right? So the South Node is in Virgo. Therefore, what this suggests is that over the next year, you're coming to terms with how you can breathe out, accept circumstances and situations for how they are, instead of trying to control, manage, and carry so much. See, I think the North Node, to a large extent, is about balance for you, suggesting that this is a year of great balance and trying to really reflect and go within to reconsider where you are in life and the next step you want to take. And what's also pretty fascinating about this is, given how eclipses, they are occurring in both Virgo and Pisces over the next year as well. And they have already started. So we have already noticed for you this clearing space, coming to terms with maybe letting go, shedding, releasing, moving away, accepting, being able to say, you know what, I cannot cope with that, or I cannot take on everybody else's stuff. See, what happened this year, so if we are to look at how eclipses happened in Virgo and Pisces, so those eclipses occurred around March time. Okay, so we had the lunar eclipse in Virgo that happened on the 14th of March 2025, which happened pretty much on Pluto in your chart and nearing Venus. So I do see this relationship change, or the dynamic of a relationship changing. But such an experience being very profound, intense, and transformative. Then also, what we see here is that there was the solar eclipse in Aries that took place on the 29th of March, and that happened right on your North Node in Aries. So we see this opening, this grand opening, this new chapter. We see possibly coming to terms with loss or grief. We see here you physically coming to this point of, what do I stand for? What is the best possible option for me moving forward? These kinds of questions come to mind. And perhaps having to make some hard decisions. So indeed, I think we are seeing these reoccurring themes linked to leadership strongly, embarking on a new journey, embarking on a new cycle, perhaps even related to investments, shared accounts and resources, related even to the occult, perhaps to your psychology. Intimacy also comes to mind, trust comes to mind, maybe starting over when it comes to trust and relationships to an extent. But then let's try and fast forward a bit, okay? So what's going to happen is these kinds of themes that I mentioned, they're going to continue to come up, right? They're going to continue. And what will happen is there will be more eclipses approaching. So by September time, what's going to occur is a lunar eclipse will take place in Pisces right on the descendant. So we could see some karmic endings here by September time related to partnerships, one-to-one relationships. Could also be a karmic release linked to your own way, so how you approach relationships essentially. Maybe coming to terms with any mirroring or empathy or taking on other people's emotions. Perhaps also boundaries are highlighted once again with the lunar eclipse in Pisces. And I also think that it's about spiritual alignment. This, I think, is massive for you when we think about course correcting tied to the eclipses. So we see these massive new chapters, these new beginnings, especially because so many of your personal planets are in these first house. Well, the first house is in particular with Virgo, but with Pisces opposite, there's still this influence, right? There is this reflective piece to speak to. And what we also see is the solar eclipse will happen in Virgo on the 21st of September, pretty much close to Uranus in your chart. So indeed, this could be some kind of new beginning, new chapter, possibly even tied to your work, tied to your daily activities, your everyday, right, your routines, because Uranus does rule your 6th house. And I'm also thinking, because Jupiter is in Virgo, right, so Jupiter rules Pisces, we are seeing these significant shifts to do with travel. I just think it's really quite aligned to a large extent when we consider your questions tied to travel, and then Jupiter is being really hit strongly here. So we are seeing these new experiences, these new chapters tied to travel. Though I think what's further important to add, and this is going to even solidify further what I'm saying, it's the fact that there will be that lunar eclipse in Virgo on the 3rd of March, 2026. So that is going to be a closing out eclipse, right? Because what will happen in 2026 is there will be that eclipse in Virgo, and then things will really start to shift into both Aquarius and Leo. But to speak to that eclipse, yeah, it will happen very close to Jupiter and on your ascendant. So we are seeing major identity changes, philosophical changes, worldview changes, and also a whole new way of viewing yourself, approaching situations. And remember, with the South Node being in Virgo, there is a letting go to add to this. So maybe letting go of false expectations, or letting go of this ideal tied to relationships, putting people on a pedestal perhaps. Or there could be new chapters tied to working abroad or offering your services abroad. There could be new chapters tied to just your philosophical views overall, and how those philosophical views are linked to your health, your body, regulating your nervous system. I think with so much activity happening right now in your first house of your body, your physical condition, health is a big part of the next few years for you. And this can look like, for example, how it is that you take care of your body, how you can regulate, how you can slow down enough to come from a place of greater calm and ease. See, what really is coming through for me when we consider how you have so much Virgo here, John, it's the autopilot stuff. It's the go, 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 the busy, 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 one project to the next, and not really giving yourself enough time to really assess, okay, is this serving me? Is this what I want? Is this good for me? So I think in essence, this is really about a lot of healing or recovery, or being able to manage your stress levels and to see in which ways you do overextend or overcommit. Maybe in this regard, it can take some time, right? It can really take some time for you to feel into things or to trust your intuition. I think even a big part of the North Node in Pisces here for the next year is about trusting your intuition and allowing your intuition to guide you to a large extent. Also paying attention to your body's signals, you know, the sensations that occur within your body and what your body is trying to communicate to you about your life, about your direction, about new goals or new aims. And, you know, maybe in the mix, there is some kind of positivity or optimism that you have, or maybe it is about turning to your faith, or it's about trying to appreciate the small moments. And it's those kinds of, I suppose, views and insights that may be able to help you through any, you know, turbulence, through any challenging moments that you experience. Because I do think to a large extent, you know, the fact that there will be an eclipse close to Uranus, so that will happen September of 2025. I do think to a large extent that we could see this shaky ground, right? We could see some turbulence, some disruption, but still, I think a big part of Pisces is about trusting. It's about having faith. It's about drawing from your spiritual gifts and insights. Prayer comes to mind here. Yoga comes to mind here. Also sitting with the more challenging emotions that do come up. I mean, we have already discussed that there was that solar eclipse that happened right close to your North Node there in Aries, and you are coming up to your second Saturn return and everything. So we are seeing the challenging times. And so this could be where your spiritual values, your spiritual practices can really help ground you and support you, okay? Okay, let's then also consider a few other things, because what I find really, really fascinating actually, John, is how when you turn 57, the 10th house is going to be activated for you in your chart. Now, before you turn 57, with you being 56 currently, the 9th house is activated, right? And Uranus is currently transiting your 9th house of long distance travel. So we are seeing these disruptions, right? These shake-ups to do with travel and also to do with higher education, advanced training, expanding your mind, you know, thinking about really growing and questioning your meaning in life. So we have noticed these sudden changes, these epiphanies, many awakenings, perhaps, you know, profound awakenings, basically tied to your physical security and your finances. Okay, so by the time you're 57, the 10th house will be activated. And so this basically means that for that year, so when you celebrate your next birthday for that year ahead, what will be activated in your chart is that of career, purpose, the long-term accomplishment, achievement, your public image. And what you have there is Gemini. Gemini resides in the 10th. So Gemini is a very versatile, curious sign. We can look at this as you having multiple jobs throughout your life, kind of going in and out of different roles, positions, wanting to learn, being quite an active learner, being a very curious individual, maybe juggling a few different jobs or roles at the same time. You needing flexibility. I think flexibility is a really important thing for you when it comes to a career, a particular role. Also, we could look at this as you needing some kind of creative outlet. So even though you might put a lot of effort into work and results and making sure that you show up as a responsible person. I think equally it's important for you to be quite playful and to be creative, to have a bit of a laugh. Having said that, right, we also see that the very ruler of Mercury, of the midheaven, which is Mercury, well, Mercury is located in Virgo. So we go back to Virgo. We notice how studious you can be. We notice how you need time to mull things over, to let information just sink in, to digest information. We notice here that you tend to be quite matter of fact and very rational, logical. We see here that when it comes to doing a good job, you want to do more than a good job. You want to do an excellent job. You want to perform really, really well. Your standards can be quite high, and maybe it is important to meet your standards. If anything is to be changed or fixed or sorted out, you may think to yourself, actually, I can't rest until I attend to that. Now, having said that, we also see that the ascendant, right? So the ascendant, like I said, it's in Virgo. Because the ascendant is in Virgo, Mercury is then the chart ruler. So Mercury also rules your chart. So we also see that this organizing mindset that you have, this mindset of making sure that everything is polished and clean, well, it's that very mindset that is tied to your purpose, I think. I think for you, you are quite a creative person. I think that you may have many visions about, okay, how can we make a product so that life is easier for people? I think that you're continuously thinking about new strategies, new methods, so that things can be more efficient.
Oh, yeah.
And it is fascinating because Mercury is conjunct Venus. So there is this beauty in how you think, how you speak, how you communicate. I think that you can come across as quite business oriented or as quite diplomatic, as quite the negotiator as well, perhaps quite pleasing when it comes to communication and getting people on your side. Now, having said that, yes, with Venus and Mercury both being in Virgo, Virgo is often known for being hypercritical, quite picky, quite fault-finding. Yes, we could look at this through a beneficial lens. You can bring those kinds of qualities into your role. For example, seeing what needs to be changed, seeing what needs to be adjusted so that the performance of a particular role or company is way higher so that you get the results that you need. But then we could also look at this as you often getting in your own head. And I suppose that is something that I touched on earlier. And so this is where the worry and the stress and the overthinking can come in, and where the overanalyzing things, and then maybe that can even lead to some procrastination, right? You can procrastinate or put things off. So maybe in a way, the South Node traveling through the first house for you over the next year, that's going to be quite, well, basically it indicates a time of you assessing those qualities, right? To be able to reflect and go, hold on, is this actually serving me? Maybe I am overthinking this. Maybe I don't have to worry about that, or maybe I don't have to pick myself apart whenever a certain situation doesn't go according to plan, according to my view, that kind of thing. Though, when we consider this in terms of career and the next step, you turning 57, the 10th house being activated, perhaps we could look at this through a lens of editing, being a tutor, a teacher, being maybe a bookkeeper, assessing large chunks of information, data collecting, data processing, working heavily with technology. Maybe even we could look at this as you teaching different languages, right? Maybe you do know more than one or two languages here, especially because Jupiter is involved too, with Jupiter being in Virgo conjunct the ascendant. Also, we could look at this through a lens of you possibly entering into roles that require a lot of hygiene, cleanliness, maybe working with animals, helping the vulnerable, thinking about the elderly, people who need support, thinking about people who may be struggling in some way, shape, or form with managing their own lives, and so you can assist. We just see this through a lens of help or service. Now, at the same time, because Gemini is involved in this could be a case of making such matters more enjoyable, right? Bringing this lightheartedness to the equation. This could be, for example, teaching in a way that is engaging, teaching in a way that really gets other people thinking and gets them excited. But equally, you're going to provide practical tips, practical advice, and you're going to want to make things more useful for other people. But what we want to do, though, is we also want to think about Mercury and how Mercury is traveling through the zodiac throughout the next year. Well, firstly, what I am going to say is when we look to the secondary progress Mercury, it's actually retrograde in Libra. So there's this diplomatic view coming into the equation, I think, within your career next year. I'm thinking about contracts, agreements, business deals, keeping up with significant records. Pallas is also in Libra too. So we consider here your strategic thinking being quite political, possibly, or you being quite diplomatic in your dealings with others, even if there are political opinions being discussed. Or it's that law could come into the equation, justice, being a defender of justice, weighing out all of your options as well. And to think about this in terms of your personal assets, your personal earnings, your money basically, because the secondary progressive Mercury is in the second house. I am also thinking about you weighing out your options when it comes to your finances, just getting things in order. And with the retrograde motion of Mercury, there is a bit of a back and forth. There could be some indecision or needing to weigh out your options so that you can make the best possible decision for you. Okay, and
That's
also
exactly
coming at things from a really rational, fair place, maybe even being a natural mediator comes to mind here. Could also be that you turn to the likes of fashion, design, music, beauty as forms of inspiration. And Pallas too, I want to add, Pallas can be about our healing methods. So with Pallas in Libra, I mean, this could be a case of Tai Chi being quite a healing activity for you, counseling, mediation could contribute to your healing. And when we think about this in terms of relationships and couples and partnerships, right, maybe couples therapy is something you've either tried in the past or it's something that you would like to try in the future. Or it could be a case
I had
of
5 marriage therapists
being at a
before I got
stage in your
divorced.
life where you and your spouse, your partner, you have tried couples therapy and maybe it's helped to a large extent there. So those would be a few different possibilities with Pallas. But really with Mercury, the secondary progressive Mercury being in Libra, there is more of a diplomatic and fair and reasonable way that you may want to communicate or share information with others. And you may be really reflective there. So really reflecting upon, okay, well, how will this person feel whenever I say this information, or how can I put myself into this other person's shoes? And you're going to be, as I said, you're going to be quite strategic. And you know what? Those kinds of ways of thinking could really show up within business and result in you being very good at business, very good at maybe getting along with coworkers or getting people on your side, right? making more friends than foes, let's just put it that way, especially when it comes to your career life, your professional life. But like I was saying earlier, let's think about Mercury. So what's actually happening with Mercury over the next year? So whenever you do turn 57, and how will Mercury move through the zodiac, and what could that suggest for your professional life? Well, what we see here is that around November, December time, that Mercury will retrograde in both Scorpio and Sagittarius. So we could look at this as you reevaluating matters tied to home, family, your local community, your local area.
Yeah, I'm trying to get.
We could look at this
dual
as
citizenship
you
from Greece
trying
and trying to move to Greece.
assess your future aspirations, kind of thinking about, okay, well, what do you want for the future? Maybe feeling this call. You've already, I think, experienced these kinds of feelings, because there was that Mercury retrograde that occurred in Sagittarius towards the end of 2024. But still, what comes to mind here is you considering what your next steps are, really reevaluating what it is that you want to do opportunity-wise, travel-wise, expansion-wise. And of course, these matters will also be tied in with networks, groups, communities, teams, because Jupiter will also be in Cancer at the time. But then as for that Scorpio section, I think the retrograde could also invite some harsh truths, things coming to light, maybe about idealistic views tied to, could be your peers, right? So people who are within the sort of same age bracket as you, could be some hard truths, some hidden truths brought to light, tied to your siblings or to more smaller, closer social circles, things like that. And considering as well in which ways you might be overly idealistic or dreamy about those areas, about those relationships. Could even be a case of wanting to deepen your bonds. That's another possibility, right? Deepening your bonds, experiencing greater intimacy, seeking deeper connection with people who live close to you. So that's another way to look at it, of course. So I do think that retrograde towards the end of the year, it will speak to a lot of depth and emotional insight. And maybe that's where too, it will behoove you to be mindful of who it is that you do connect with or relate to, especially within professional settings, because remember, Mercury does rule that 10th house area for you. Now, as for the Mercury retrograde, which will happen in Pisces, so that will be from February until March of 2026, that one's going to be quite interesting, because I think that's going to speak to you taking a closer look at business deals, contracts, agreements, thinking about certain settlements. Could even be about new relationships or the ending of relationships. Could also be that relationships from the past, they come up asking you to pay close attention, not necessarily physically, but it could be a case of emotions linked to those past relationships that come up, maybe asking you to look at them so that you can make peace with them. But then I also think, because Mercury does rule that 10th house area for you, you'll be in this 10th house year, we could see this as maybe you needing to take your time as you reevaluate where you are professionally. Certain documents could be looked over, emails could be looked over, just making sure that you are seeing things clearly, because of course with Pisces there can be this kind of fog that occurs. Now, the interesting thing about this then is when we explore the other Mercury retrograde, which will happen in Cancer, so that will be from June until July of 2026. That one I think is going to be quite an interesting one for you, friendship-wise, community-wise, support system-wise. See, what you're moving into over the next year is that you're gonna really reevaluate where you are within just relationships overall, because the 3rd house, the 7th house, and the 11th house are all relationship houses. They're very much about socializing. So with the 2nd house especially, or sorry, the seventh house especially, it's more one-to-one. Okay, so that Mercury retrograde around February, March, that retrograde is going to speak to those one-to-one connections more strongly. But then we fast forward to June, July time of 2026 with Cancer involved. The 11th house really speaks to wider audiences, wider groups, networks, teams, organizations, firms, bigger communities, and those friendships, right? Those hopefully tighter friendships where you feel that support, because Cancer is such a nurturing sign. So I do think to a large extent, this is very much about the emotional world, your emotional self, and how you connect, how you relate with others. Those are going to be huge themes, huge kind of areas of life to reevaluate and to reassess, especially within the context of career, within the context of your public life, your public image. Okay, your professional life as well there, of course. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to explain how you were born shortly after a new moon occurred. You were actually born technically under a waxing crescent moon, but I would still consider the new moon influence to be somewhat strong. So what can this indicate? I think that you are quite the leader. I think that you are a very ambitious individual with this energy, especially in the 1st house, right? The 1st house of self, aims, ambitions. The 1st house, I would even suggest, is a house of action. It's also suggesting here that from a very young age, you were pretty much taught to be this helpful person, or to establish this work ethic. I see you possessing a strong work ethic.
I started working at 12 years old to 18 years old in my dad's restaurant.
This strong problem solver. And seeing what can be fixed, seeing how things can be improved within your environment. I even also see this as you being self-sufficient, self-reliant, being somewhat committed, okay? So, for example, whenever you do agree to something or you make a plan, I do see this as you wanting to follow through with that plan to a large extent, because it's almost like you want to do that as a way to prove to yourself that you can be reliable. I further see this with how you have Saturn in Aries as well, right? That self-sufficiency, possibly even in a way being forced to be self-sufficient, right? Forced to provide for yourself from quite a young age, forced to maybe get a job from a very, well, as soon as you could, you may have started working. And so I do see how...
Yeah, like I said before, just a few moments ago, I started working my dad's restaurant from 12 years old to 18 years old as a busboy, and then I peeled potatoes, I was a host, I was a waiter, I cooked, I did the dishwasher, I did the inventory, I took the money to the bank, yeah, all that stuff.
Your strong work ethic was nurtured or developed. It was in a way...
I would train the waitresses, the new waitresses.
way reinforced. It was reflected back at you through the environment you grew up in. I also partly see this as, especially with the moon involved here, you possibly being quite the family orientated person, right? That is a big possibility here, right? Where you show up for your loved ones, you show up as this practical caregiver, as this individual who can show through your actions basically that you're there for support, you're there to help. Now, with that being said, because there is just so much Virgo happening on one side and then there is like no Pisces on the other side, this again speaks to how the North Node in Pisces over the next year is going to be such a big teacher for you. So teaching you about how you can surrender, how you can let go, how you can approach things from a more empathetic, emotional place rather than from this really heady, logical, rational place, because that could be a possible challenge for you. But what I will say here is that when it comes to getting new projects off the ground, I think that you're someone who is able to plant those seeds. I think you're someone who can begin a new project and say, right, okay, let's be active about this. And equally, taking the lead to a large extent. Yes, Virgo as an archetype is typically the one who is of service and who doesn't necessarily take on strong leadership roles, is more willing to help other people out and contribute in that way. But with so much happening in this first house area for you, I do see this as you possessing such an independence, a bravery. There's such a bravery to you and how you show up in the world. There is potential for strong leadership roles and having this growth mindset. Personal development really comes to mind here. Self-improvement, really wanting to learn, being quite active about learning and about growth, and making, I would even argue, making a strong difference in the world through your actions, through your ways of just being of service. There's such a...
Yeah, I get new ideas all the time. I got a whiteboard right here, and I got new ideas that pop into me all the time, and I fill up the whiteboard and I take a picture of it, and I got a whole stack of whiteboard pictures that I have that I print out. I send them to my email, I print them out, and I incubate them. When the time is right, the world will see them. I've got so many new ideas. Look out for my new digital downloads. They're coming at a fast pace. I'm kidding around, but they're coming at a pace that it's my own.
Strength and grit and determination too here. Now, with that being said, I also want to mention another thing, and it's to do with a significant transit that's approaching. It's approaching very soon. So Uranus will actually enter your 10th house by the beginning of July. All right. So that's going to be for a few months. But then by I would say springtime of 2026, Uranus will officially enter Gemini, where Uranus will move through that 10th house area for you over the next 6 to 7 years. So let's break this transit down, because what we see here up ahead for you, John, are really exciting shifts. Right, so first of all, Uranus coming into the 10th can indicate a time of revolution, a time of sudden changes, surprises, especially within the areas of life related to your career, to significant progress, advancing in some way. So for instance, this could be a new opportunity that almost comes out of nowhere, and that new opportunity could be tied to education, right? So learning, when we think about Gemini here, could be tied to presenting, reporting, teaching, advertising, marketing, research, perhaps even joining together with others to a large extent. So you joining with like minds as a way to discuss, as a way to bounce your ideas off one another.
This is where my channel is going. Today's date that I'm doing this is Wednesday, May 28th, and my channel is just about getting some traction. It's kind of brand new right now. But by the time people watch this, it's going to be evergreen, and you'll see that I'll probably be talking to other people, and probably be on other people's podcasts and shows and YouTube channels and interviewing, and we'll be collaborating together. and we'll be bringing out our new ideas. That's what I see happening in what Hannah's saying. By the way, Hannah's awesome. If you want to do a 3 hour thing with her, I think it costs like $600 or something like that. And she did it. She's doing a great job. I don't know what you think about it, but I think she's doing a great job because she's nailing like everything. And I'm trying to keep quiet, but now I'm like watching this like it's an hour and 41 minutes right now, and it's like I gotta say something. It's like I can't keep quiet for 3 fucking hours. So yeah, let's just continue with what Hannah has to say. She's great. If you want to do a reading with her, there'll be a link below that you can do a reading with her. She's spot on. I've been following her since about 2018. She's amazing. Great channel that she's got. All right, talk to you later.
And to possibly even link this stuff in with your services, your work, what you provide, what you offer, right? Because we go back to how Uranus does rule the 6th house for you, right? So Aquarius in the 6th actually is a big indicator of experimentation, to experiment when it comes to your work and your daily habits. Plus Uranus coming into the 10th could be this whole new concept related to the day-to-day, right? So what I think about here is how your everyday, your routines, your habits, your rituals, those things are going to change quite profoundly over the next coming years. We also see here greater restlessness. We see here greater thought, greater curiosity, breakthroughs when it comes to your curiosity, breakthroughs when it comes to learning. Plus, we see here a greater push for freedom, especially intellectual freedom, communicative freedom. What's really coming through here is using your voice. So to communicate from a place of authenticity. So to share and engage and collaborate with others by communicating what it is that you really think, what your unique, so thinking about what your unique opinions are, or being okay with not necessarily agreeing with others, or being okay with challenging the status quo. We see greater non-conformity as well, right? So
I've got severe non-conformity, all right? My views are radical. Radical. Okay? And the world may not be ready for them, but I don't give a fuck. Right now I'm eating a banana because I want to, because I do whatever the fuck I want. And that's what's wrong with the world right now. People don't do whatever the fuck they want because they're conditioned by society to do what society and what their authorities that are given to them. Anyways, I'm getting off base, but all right, let's get back to Hannah. She's doing a bang up job.
To break the rules, or to rebel, or to want to liberate yourself. I'm thinking about how the 8th house will be in combination with this 10th house transit, as well as the 6th. So when we combine these 3 particular houses over the next coming years for you, we're seeing major work career changes, major shifts tied to your public image, just your overall lifestyle, your overall way of showing up. Big changes. And I also look at this through a lens of how you join together resource-wise, material-wise with others. Seeing which kinds of people you can trust, which kinds of business partners you can trust, which kinds of businesses you invest in or you would like to invest in. A strong message, I think, overall is investing in your future, experiencing this higher calling to invest in your future, possibly wanting to retire earlier, or possibly wanting to pour a lot of your resources into a particular project or a particular business, or something investment wise even there, right? But yes, wanting to pour your resources into those areas so that you will have plenty of finances to set you up, right? What's coming through is thinking about the long game and getting ahead of the curve.
That's what this channel, Know Thyself Now with John Tzortzis, is all about. And I'm thinking about changing the name of it, but I'm not going to do it yet, so I won't say anything about that. I'm thinking about adding quad right to it, to my channel. But I'm not sure if I want to do that or not, so that's just an idea I've got. But yeah, I've got over a couple hundred videos that I've made already. And I'm sitting on the videos, and they're ready to be released. Right now I've got four videos already like done for the next 2 weeks. So they're already done. And then I also have about 7 other videos that I'm gonna need to prepare to get done. So I'll probably have but probably by next week I'll have 8 videos, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 videos already in the future already made. So I know what I'm doing, and I'm having a great time doing it. And I'm a nonconformist, and fuck authority.
You may even find that you enter into a whole new industry. You start your own venture, or you add to something that you've already created. Now, it could also be a case of such sudden change happening to your social standing, your social status, to your public persona, and maybe wanting to redefine what those very things are, and reinventing yourself basically professionally, reinventing your public image, actively seeking out, in a way, new opportunities for growth, possibly even inventing something, right? Inventing some kind of product or a device, or using technology in a large way to get ahead. Using education as a way to get ahead, or as a way to make significant shifts in consciousness, or as a way to make significant changes within society. So to give back, to make a difference, to make life that much easier, to help. And the other thing I want to add to this is the fact that as Uranus does travel through your 10th house over the next 6 to 7 years, remember that Uranus will create squares to all of that Virgo in your chart. So what I think will be a bit of a challenge for you over the next coming years is trying to think more so about the group and about the collective and the collective's visions and aims versus what your personal views are. I think with you having so much of this first house influence, it's almost like your independence is very strong within you, in that you may really want to do things your way, and it might be difficult for you at times to let go of control, or to let others help, to let others bring their unique things, to let others bring their contributions to the group. So what I'm getting from this is the group is what will support you and what could really help you perform, help you advance. So it's trying to approach your professional life from this place of, let's be a team. Let's learn from one another. Let's learn from each other's strengths and gifts, and let's delegate some tasks. And so equally, I think in this regard, you are going to refine your skills. You're going to improve upon your teamwork skills, your collaborative skills, your interpersonal skills. I suppose this does make sense because there is a lot happening on this left side of the chart, and the left side of the chart is often associated with personal aims, personal ambitions, and values, versus the right side of the chart, that's very collaborative, that's very other-focused, team-focused. So I think, again, when we bring it back to how the North Node is in the 7th, traveling through for the next year, this is where we're going to see spiritual growth on your behalf, okay? So to think about, for example, times whenever you're so stressed out or high-strung about particular projects or about your life, maybe a part of what you'll come to learn about yourself is how to have more patience, or how to step to the side a little bit and go, I'm going to trust that X, Y, and Z, that those people, they have their role, that it's not up to me to always be the one who carries that weight or feels like I need to be in control essentially all the time. So those would be a few different things that could come up. So we want to think about how those behaviors show up within professional settings. Though at the same time, I think what's important to note is with Saturn and Neptune traveling through your 8th house, it will be important to establish clear boundaries, because there could be some confusion over who does what, for example, over who contributes to the business or to the project, to the group, to the work scenario. So basically to set clear intentions about what role you play, the role that other people play. This could also, of course, manifest within your intimate relationships. So to think about your spouse, your significant other, close friends as well. So, for example, this could be about being very clear with relation to could be your energy levels, it could be your own sense of self, your own boundaries, and how much you can physically take on throughout the day. How much you can physically take on within a particular project that involves your spouse, your significant other. This could also be a case of the Neptune-Saturn transits over the next few years representing a time of great healing, and I would say this could manifest then psychologically, right? So possibly going to speak with a therapist or with a healer, or even using the occult as a healing tool. Or this could manifest as seeking greater emotional connection, to bond on a more emotional level with a friend or a close relative. So whatever this may be, I think whilst Neptune suggests this dreaminess, this vision that could be experienced where you feel excited, possibly, right? You feel excited, you feel enthusiastic, inspired. Saturn still speaks to some responsibility and trying not to get too carried away, right? To be somewhat cautious and somewhat skeptical too. I'm even thinking about the relationship you have with your children, if you have any children, right? Because Saturn rules the 5th house for you. I'm thinking about relationships with co-workers here as well. So it's just being clear about what your intentions are, what your motives are, what you want out of a particular project, what you want out of a particular financial situation or out of an intimate situation. That way you and others are going to be on the same page from the beginning, hopefully. And then that also can suggest a stronger foundation, a sturdier foundation. With Neptune involved, sure, yes, there could still be some structures, foundations that are dissolved. And at the same time, this could manifest as feeling slightly lethargic or experiencing fatigue or feeling a bit restless or like you're not fully energized, right? That's another possibility. It could be that there are times when you just need to rest, you need to reset. Maybe it's trying to find a bit of a balance there, or to kind of see that both can work together. So there can be periods of building, growth, being assertive, but also times whenever you can slow down, reset, recharge, ask yourself, okay, check in. Is this for me? How aligned am I with this? It's basically, I think what's really fascinating about these transits for you over the next coming years is you have an opportunity to really pay close attention to those sparks of inspiration, those sparks of eagerness, but equally to check in and say, hold on, I'm not feeling inspired. I'm not feeling that enthusiastic right now. And sure, it could be a case of needing to push through at times, but it can also be a case of listening to how you're feeling. You know, energetically, I'm talking about, physically speaking. And this could be where great transformation occurs. Maybe this is going to be a big lesson for you over the next coming years, John, because with so much Virgo, I see this as you living so much of your life being the doer, being the helper, being the one who jumps in, being the one who is reliable. So others calling you up and saying, oh, I need your help with this. Can you do this? Can you do this? And you getting so used to that, right? Being in that rhythm, and finding it difficult then to not be that way, I suppose, to a large extent. But maybe with these transits over the next coming years, you're going to get yourself to a point where you're not as available, let's just put it that way. And you're able to put yourself first, to make yourself a priority. This is not about being completely selfish. This is not about saying, oh, I'm going to be hyper independent and I don't need anyone. I'm not going to give to anyone. This, again, I go back to balance here. This is about you trying to come from a place of, okay, how much of that service role, helper role, how much of that does me good and how much of that drains me. So I think this is a big opportunity basically for you to shed past identities, to embrace a new vision, a new way of showing up in the world, right? This of course is about death and rebirth, because this is happening in your 8th house of grand, passionate, bold transformation. So we're going to see for you these endings to do with identity, endings to do with self-assertiveness, and then being able to embark on a new journey. And this is where you're going to grow to a large extent. So it's these kinds of experiences and feelings and behaviors that are going to be strongly, heavily tied in with your career, tied in with your everyday, your daily habits, your daily routines. Now, of course, with that in mind, trying to accept such releases, such endings could be difficult, because it could be a case of you holding on and not wanting to let go, because those things, those titles, those identities, they have served a purpose. They're what you're used to. But you see, 8th house transits communicate this message of face your fears. Explore what is hidden. Go beneath the surface. And tap into parts of the self that are locked away. Yeah, I think you're really going to surprise yourself over the next coming years, especially over the next 6 years or so. I think it could be a case where in about 5 to 6 years you look back at 2025 and you think, I'm unrecognizable. Who was that person? I'm so glad I made that change. I'm so glad I took the leap. I'm so glad I went for that business opportunity or that career opportunity. You see, at the same time, the interesting thing is Jupiter will also transit through this 11th house area for you over the next year. So Jupiter will enter Cancer June of 2025, will be there for a whole year. And so you may find that your networks expand. You may find that group dynamics, they start to really flourish. It's that by you nurturing your friendships, by you nurturing your groups and your causes or certain projects that you want to be a part of, you're going to get so much back. And you may find that you're going to be left feeling pretty blessed, pretty satisfied. And a lot of those groups, it's going to be basically about experiencing emotional fulfillment within them. At the same time, I do want to mention that with Jupiter traveling through your 10th house over the past year, right? So Jupiter has been transiting your 10th house since May of 2024. So for the past year, you may find that your direction has changed and that this has been a year of great meaning. A lot of bigger questions have been asked about your future, about your purpose, about your direction, your moral compass. I mean, following your moral compass and aligning with that. And this is basically where we've seen a lot of growth for you. And you may find that you're left feeling pretty blessed or feeling like, you know what, over the past year, I'm really glad that I questioned. I'm really glad that I asked questions about my next step, especially within relationships, especially regarding career and everything, success, what success means to you. Though before we move on to this opposition between Ceres, Juno and Scorpio versus Vesta and Taurus, I actually wanted to take a quick look at your solar return for the year. Okay, so whenever you do celebrate your next birthday, John, this is basically the chart that will be drawn up for the year based on the position of the sun. So this solar return chart can basically describe how your life may unfold throughout the year. And what we see is that Cancer is on the rising, so a lot of themes to do with family and home, comfort, your emotional security. And then Jupiter is also in Cancer, where it is exalted. So we could literally look at this as you relocating, moving, being open to new territories. This could also be a case of traveling for family purposes or with family. Could also be a case of feeling lucky, feeling blessed, feeling fortunate to a large extent, and even following your intuition when it comes to expanding, when it comes to your personal growth. And I think your health and your vitality are going to be big themes to focus on when we consider your intuition and how you nurture yourself, how you nurture your body. Then the North Node is making a trine to Jupiter, and the North Node is in the 9th. So that can literally manifest as you following this path of travel, right? You expanding your mind, elevating your consciousness, having many spiritual experiences perhaps whilst you are traveling. So that's really exciting to see with the North Node in Pisces. Plus, there is so much happening in the 10th house area as well. Of course, Saturn and Neptune will be in Aries. They'll both be retrograde. So at the same time, I'm thinking to myself that whilst there is a lot of movement and activity when it comes to the likes of travel, family, home, I think there's also going to be a few more questions regarding what we were talking about, success, and what you want to build for the future. Maybe we could look at it as your year ahead being a year of great reflection and assessing exactly what you want to build and what the dream is as well, to a large extent, particularly when it comes to your professional life. Okay, And furthermore, what we also notice is that Mars is located in the 4th house there. So we could equally see this as a lot of activity regarding how you can maybe find balance at home. Okay, how you can maybe try to even things out, compromising perhaps with certain family members, having to have discussions about the next step so that you and certain family members are on the same page. And then we also notice that Pluto is making that trine to Uranus between the 8th and 12th houses. So we also notice psychological shifts, psychological changes that will unfold throughout the year as well. But let's now focus on these asteroids. Right, I want to draw your attention firstly to Juno. So Juno is this asteroid of marriage and mutual respect. It's an asteroid of commitment. So if you can imagine, Venus, of course, is about how we love and the kinds of qualities we value in people and within ourselves, the kinds of people we're attracted to. And of course, Venus is in Virgo, and this can be an indicator of you valuing, appreciating relationships that are based on great helpfulness and thoughtfulness, people who are quite clean, hygienic, pretty intelligent, witty. And then when we look to Juno, Juno is in Scorpio. So Scorpio is such a deep sign and really values and yearns for deeper connection, intimacy, closeness. Vulnerability is a big theme here, but equally I do think that vulnerability is a challenge within itself, because often Scorpio can fear vulnerability. And so maybe for you, what you have experienced within your committed relationships especially is that perhaps there's a part of you that resists or is slightly afraid, or it's that you need trust. You need to establish this foundation of trust and intimacy. And so it's really important to pull back the layers, I suppose, when it comes to getting close. And so Juno here in Scorpio does suggest that when it comes to the likes of marriage, right, the likes of even, I would say here, the likes of entering into a business deal that's more consistent and committed. Basically, when it comes to those very relationship dynamics, you need to feel like you can go all in. Like you can go all in 100%. You can trust those people, that person. And that is basically the strength that's present. The glue, I suppose you could say. But also, we see that Ceres is in Scorpio and it's very close to Juno. So Ceres is such a nurturing asteroid. Ceres is very much tied to closeness as well, connection. But equally, Ceres can be about separation. Ceres can show up as loss, grief. And then Juno, we just want to think about this from another way with Juno. Juno can be about divorce and how we retaliate whenever we've been betrayed, whenever there has been infidelity. So in Scorpio, we see the intensity, right? We see this possibility of you experiencing could be really tragic losses throughout your life, maybe related to siblings, related to certain peers, classmates, perhaps throughout your younger years. When we think about, your early schooling experiences there could have been some kind of loss or grief present. We could also look at this as you experiencing very strong feelings of separation and possibly feelings of abandonment due to the ending of a relationship. or a marriage. So we think about this possibility of a divorce that you have experienced, that you've went through at some point. Plus, this could manifest as you witnessing your own parents divorcing, or you witnessing people very close to you divorcing. But what I'm getting from this connection between Juno and Ceres in Scorpio is that there's something quite notable about loss. There's something quite notable about endings. And perhaps how certain endings have even psychologically impacted you. And maybe looking at how those endings contribute to how you show up within your relationships moving forward as well. So let's now think about Vesta, right? So Vesta is this asteroid of home, hearth, safety, protection, I would say, to a large extent. Vesta is very much about our dedication to our goals. So Vesta in Taurus suggests to me that you can be quite a determined individual regarding your goals, regarding your dedication, right? You can be quite fixed, set in your ways, have the stamina. You possess a mighty endurance. And you may even devote yourself to certain religious practices. Maybe this has been a part of your story throughout your life. You being this very committed, very responsible, hands-on individual within a church, within a certain group practice. Could be, of course, a particular philosophical view or belief that you have about the world. And so you stay true to that, right? You stay very much focused on those things. Could also be a case of you striving a great deal when it came to higher education, maybe wanting to help others, wanting to influence the world in a way where people feel supported, they feel secure, maybe offering your assistance, offering practical resource, so we think about resources, right? Practical things, spending your earned money on experiences for people where they feel valued. And the fact that Vesta is also connecting quite strongly with the moon, we could look at this through a lens of you being quite the provider, or when it comes to your family, you do show up for your family. Yeah. Now, with Vesta opposite, however, this Scorpio energy, we notice the push and pull. We notice the back and forth, the imbalances, the power struggles. And this, of course, could very well manifest as you wanting to make yourself a priority or wanting to commit yourself, to devote yourself to a particular plan, but then those commitments clashing with, could be a relationship, it could be siblings, could be a case of power struggles tied to finances, right? So we think about money here because Taurus and Scorpio are very much signs of money and wealth. So there could be some of those challenges to do with control there regarding money. And again, those very challenges could show up within your sibling relationships. So we think, for example, about sibling rivalry here. Greed could come into this, stubbornness could come into this. Could also be a case of you wanting to make something for yourself or to do something for yourself, but then certain family members disagreeing with that, possibly judging you for that, shaming you for that. Could also be a matter of you needing some kind of separation from a committed partner, from a spouse, your significant other. And again, we see the push and pull, right? Both Taurus and Scorpio are very fixed, so they can be very much set in their ways. So this can suggest a lack of compromise, and it's this lack of compromise that can show up within discussions and conversations. So to consider how you and particular people you have power struggles with. So how you and them clash in your views, in your opinions. Could be a case of you wanting to follow your own spiritual path, religious path, but then certain members again disagreeing. Could also be a case of disagreeing over information, over knowledge. There could be levels here of deceit and hidden truths, hidden matters as well. And what also comes into the equation, of course, is the fact that Neptune is also involved in this, because Neptune is in the third house and is opposing Black Moon Lilith. So let's just take a moment here, because what we see is that the secondary progressed Juno is very close to Neptune. So we're seeing, certain changes, developments within marriage, within committed relationships, devoted relationships. Venus is also close by, so the secondary progressed Venus, and Ceres too. So a reminder, Venus is very much about love and connection, and is also about what is fair, actually. Venus can be quite the conditional way of loving others. And then Ceres, of course, is tied to an extent, yes, to nurture, to feel safe, but also can show up as separation. Right, so I just wanted to give some context there, because whenever we explore Neptune, this can indicate ideals, can indicate a fog, not seeing things very clearly within your local area, your local environment. I mean, it could even be a case of you not feeling super seen within your local community, within certain smaller social circles. Could be a case of you devoting yourself to certain spiritual practices for the community or within the community, but there's just something here that's not fully content. What I'm getting from this is a lack of emotional fulfillment, or feeling like a part of you is invisible, a part of you isn't fully being accessed. Could also be a case of certain addictive tendencies coming into this, whether this be addiction within your siblings, or your siblings basically struggling with addiction, right? Or this could be a case of you being quite uncertain about who is being honest with you, right? So there could be some untruths, basically, when it comes to more of those everyday conversations. Could even be a case of uncertainty, confusion, or deceit tied to your vehicle, right? Or to different vehicles that you possess. Okay, so with the opposition then to Black Moon Lilith, I see this as you possessing quite the mighty wrath. And what I mean by this is you reaching a breaking point with this kind of behavior. So these power struggle dynamics that I previously mentioned, you reaching a point of, I'm not putting up with this anymore. I'm done with this. I need out of here. I need to put myself first. These are my assets. These are my personal belongings. You're not going to take this away from me. And I also see this as you taking back some form of control. It's really an interesting thing, because you have so much, like I was saying earlier, you have so much Virgo, and that Virgo in the first house can show up as you being very self-sufficient, self-reliant, there for people, very much available, very studious, very gifted even when it comes to organization, when it comes to planning things. It could be a case of you being very health conscious and just very mindful of the things you need to do to get through the day, to make your life as good as it can possibly be, right? There's this continuous improvement when it comes to Virgo, and so of course this improvement can be really beneficial, right? Adding to your life essentially. But then what we notice is that Mars is in the 12th, and Mars in the 12th, that's Mars in the 12th is not the easiest placement, because what it can often indicate is that anger is kept in check, right? Frustration is kept in check. What you actually want to say or what you want to do is hidden, is locked away.
Now, I just had a huge back and forth argument with my sister a few days ago, and today is May 28th, 2025, and 3 days ago, on May 25th, it's a Wednesday today, on May 25th, Sunday, Saturn entered Aries. Okay? And I had a really big argument with my sister. I mean, this is like huge, huge, huge. And basically, it was about flat Earth and vegetarianism. Okay? And yesterday, Tuesday, I made up my mind that I don't want, and now I had Saturn in my in Pisces in my ops. You know, the Beast Dealer says the ops for Virgo, ops means opposite, is Pisces. The ops for Leo is Aquarius. Okay, the ops for Scorpio is Taurus. And Taurus is the ops for Scorpio. They're opposite each other. And I had a 7th house transit. And now that Saturn is in Aries, I created boundaries. And I do not want to have anybody who's close to me, like a close friend. An acquaintance is something else. I don't mind acquaintances not believing in the flat earth and not believing in being a vegetarian. But close friends of mine, I just made a boundary, and I haven't told my sister yet. I just am not going to talk to her. You know, she wants to talk to me, she can call me. I'm not going to call her. I'm fucking sick and tired of her bullshit. You know, I was telling her about vegetarianism and how, like, for the past 9 years, I've been telling her about vegetarianism because I became a vegetarian in 2015. And I was a pescatarian for 3 years, so 2015, 16, 17, 8, about 2019, I became full vegetarian, you know, and now I'm basically want to become a vegan. I just gotta give up cheese, which I pretty much have done already, but I still eat it occasionally. Anyways, so this argument I had with my sister, it was like, fuck this shit. And now that Saturn has moved into Aries, and we also had the new moon in Gemini, okay? You know, that's what really did it. You know? We had the new moon in Gemini on Monday. And after that, I decided it came upon me suddenly, fuck her, you know? I don't love her anymore, and she's irrelevant to my life. In fact, the only people who are relevant in my life are people who are vegetarian and people who know the earth is flat, not believe, who know the earth is flat. That's it. I don't want anybody who thinks that the earth is a spinning globe to be a part of my life. Okay, I don't want anybody. Fuck them. Fuck you, okay, if you believe that shit. Prove curvature. You can't do it. You can't prove curvature, bitch. Fucking A, man. There's a guy, Flat Earth Dave. He's got a Flat Earth Dave. He's got a Flat Earth Zodiac app, you know, and he has 3 bitcoins he'll give to anybody that can prove that there's curvature. And he's been doing this for like 3 or 4 years now. And guess what? The past 3 or 4 years, not one person on this planet has gotten to 3 Bitcoins. Nobody can prove that there's curvature, okay? Anybody who believes that the Earth is a spinning globe and the sun is 93 million miles away is a fool. You can't prove it. Prove it then. If you prove curvature, go ahead, bitch. Fucking A, man. So now she's no longer part of my life. She's irrelevant until she believes in the flat Earth and becomes a vegetarian. Otherwise, I'm talking to her as little as possible. Fuck her, man. Fucking bitch.
Maybe a part of that is due to having to put on a show for others, having to perform for others, having to do the right thing. Just being so consumed, I guess, by all of that Virgo influence of being the good person, being the perfect person, the one who never steps out of line.
Tell him, Hannah.
But yet,
Tell
the
him,
Mars
Hannah.
in Leo has something to offer you, right? The Mars in Leo says, okay, but I want to actually express what I truly think, and I am done with this kind of behavior. I need to get away from this.
Absolutely
I need to think
done.
about what I
She's
want.
nailing it. How can she do
and
that?
I think that that's a very similar message even when we explore how Saturn is in Aries too, because with Saturn in Aries, it can manifest as this confinement to do with your sense of self, to do with asserting yourself. So as you approach the second Saturn return, I'm thinking about one, what wounds are coming up to the surface again, what's becoming quite evident within yourself psychologically, emotionally, because Saturn is going to connect with that Chiron influence very strongly in the next coming weeks, right? So there is that, and over the next year or so, just to highlight. So I think as you start to gear up for this second Saturn return, it's almost like you're being taken into the depths again. You're being taken into the underworld. You're being called to assess what is buried. And that within itself is about transformation. It's about liberation. Because what I think is even important to note here about Black Moon Lilith is this is about reclaiming your power. And it's fascinating because Uranus, when we think about the transit of Uranus has been in Taurus for the past 7 years or so, right? So traveling through this 9th house area for you. And over the past year or so, a couple of years even, Uranus has joined up with Lilith in your chart. And so I think this has suggested a shake-up. There's something very disruptive and unpredictable about your belief systems, about your worldviews, about the kinds of messages that you share with the world or that you consume. Thinking about what you've outgrown, which kinds of messages and worldviews, which ones just do not align with you anymore. And
Fuck
they
the
only
globe.
just cause you
Go ahead and prove the globe Earth and this curvature. Prove it. You can't do it. It's impossible. You get 3 Bitcoins. That's like
you feel stuck. You feel limited.
$300,000 if you can
I'm
prove
thinking
curvature. Why
about
don't you go prove
Uranus
curvature and get
coming along over the
$300,000,
past few
bitch?
years and being this profound bringer of truth and insight, almost as if to say you have experienced a big awakening, perhaps what has felt like a rude awakening, right? Because hard truths have come up too, I would say. But again, I think it comes back to reclaiming your power when it comes to your possessions, when it comes to your belongings, when it comes to your self-worth.
Here's another thing. This is going to be hard for me to do, to find people who don't ejaculate. You know, the porn and shit like that, the fucking ejaculators. Fuck the ejaculators. If you ejaculate the porn, you're a stupid fucking piece of shit. If you ejaculate in general, you're a fucker. You're a stupid fuck. You know? But how am I going to meet people who don't ejaculate? You know, it's like the whole world does that shit. Fucking jagoffs.
Right? When it comes to what your beliefs are, even assessing certain limiting beliefs that you've held for so long. It's like Uranus has came along and has just broken those things down and has shattered certain systems, shattered certain structures and foundations, and has said, rethink this. Rethink the program, what you've been fed, what you've been conditioned to believe. And here's the thing about it as well. Uranus is pretty much making a sextile to Chiron in your chart. I just want to take a moment to explain this. So with Chiron being in Aries, just want to take some time. Chiron in Aries can indicate that there is a wound, there's a deep-seated wound that says, I can't be myself. I can't assert myself. I can't go after my goals. I don't have what it takes to go after what I want. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of what might happen if I do. Chiron in Aries can also be this indicator of people pleasing, of trying to manage everybody else's emotions, being there even through people's time of need, especially in the 8th house, because the 8th house is about loss and grief. I'm also thinking a little bit about what you needed, especially when you were younger, what you needed, and how you may have fit into this role of, I'm going to be there for everybody else. So on one hand, you know, I said earlier about so much energy being in the 1st house, and that can really manifest as you being self-sufficient, independent, possibly having to put yourself first to a large extent, having to provide for yourself. But on the other hand, the South Node in Libra still indicates that there's a part of you that finds it hard to be able to say to people, no, I need time for me. And I'm talking about this from a perspective of emotional clarity and taking care of yourself emotionally, psychologically. Sure, it is one thing to show up practically and physically for people, to be that doer, with so much Virgo there. But it's another thing to really feel the depth of your pain. It's another thing to be able to sit at the end of the day and check in with yourself and to say, how did today go? Like, what happened? And how do I feel about that? So, Chiron, interestingly, what happened was you experienced a Chiron return. So the Chiron return happens around about the age of 50 or so. And so, 50, 55, about that. And so for you to experience your Chiron return, what has opened up for you over recent years is a lot of self-reflection, showing up in this way of, okay, what am I not looking at? What am I not addressing within myself?
That's right.
What is to be, to an extent, healed? Now, with that being said, we also think here about how Chiron is the wound that can't necessarily be healed 100%. Yes, it's about recovery. It's about looking at our wounds and being quite sensitive towards those. But it's also about what you can learn from those wounds and how you can share of yourself, how you can be supportive towards others. So I think your Chiron return has really deepened your understanding about yourself, about what you need. And psychological wounds may have been opened up largely. And with that being said then, Uranus, of course Uranus will enter Gemini like I was saying earlier, but Uranus over the next year or so will make that sextile to Chiron. So I'm wondering here about certain surprises, jolts, mighty changes to do with your psychological world, your emotional landscape. Maybe because of a career change, maybe because of an unexpected shift basically that happens within your professional life, your public life. Plus, Jupiter, as Jupiter travels through your 11th house from June of 2025 until June of 2026, Jupiter will sextile all of that Virgo. So I see this as many exciting new developments and opportunities related to the group, related to the team, communities that you're involved in, and you feeling this deep emotional fulfillment, this satisfaction. So what comes to mind is you feeling like the effort that you give and that you put in, that effort is valued, it's nurtured, it's appreciated essentially by others. I see this as such a fruitful and rewarding friendship period, and possibly a fruitful and rewarding period tied to your work ethic and what you are, so basically what you're currently building, what you're working on. It's seeing the fruits of your labor, but it's the fruits of your labor that happen due to emotional connection, genuine friendships, genuine closeness, feeling like you're a part of something bigger than yourself, maybe wanting to give back, maybe wanting to start your own type of community or retreat, just pouring a lot of your energy, a lot of your physical effort into that of community. Okay, so now what we're going to do, John, is we're going to just go around the wheel as we explore each of the houses and their rulers. Right. Virgo then, in the first house with Mercury, the ruler of your first, your chart ruler, residing there. This suggests that, as previously, really mentioned here, that you are quite the analytical individual. You approach life from a more studious, well-informed place. You pick up on details, you pick up on little tiny things that may go unnoticed. I see this as you having quite a polished and clean look. And I also see this as you being an overachiever, a high performer, always reaching to do better, reaching to improve, right? Especially with Jupiter there. Jupiter is very much about expansion, so expanding on these very traits and attributes. I also see this as you, as I was also previously mentioning, about you being self-sufficient, and this is about constantly, I think, thinking about your goals, thinking about your ambitions, thinking about the things that you really, really want to achieve in life, and having this attitude of, you know what, if I'm gonna achieve this, I've got to put in the work. I have to put in the effort and perform, to keep performing, to keep studying, to keep learning, to keep growing. Okay. Libra in the second house. So Venus, of course, is the ruler of your second. We see this as you being quite compromising to an extent when it comes to your resources, when it comes to your possessions. you collaborating strongly with others. I mean, collaboration and negotiation may be skills that you possess. Could also be a case of you earning money via, could be law, could be fashion, could be beauty even. Could also be earning money via collaboration. So when you and another person, when you both combine, when you come together, this is where we see business partnerships. This is where we see business deals and contracts being made. Could also be a case of you earning money for your diplomacy, for your tact, for your wit, for your elegance, for how you can relate to other people. And then we go back to Venus, right? So Venus is in Virgo. Using your words seems to be a skill. Let's just say that you may be very good at talking your way into things and out of things. So using diplomacy, using tact within work settings, within your everyday dealings with others there. And how possibly your work does involve contracts, agreements, maybe having to sort out and organize other people's money. Large sums of money comes to mind here because Pluto is conjunct Venus as well, okay? And then of course with Pallas also in the second house, there is that strategic way of going about things. Strongly, again, it's the strongly diplomatic approach with Venus or with Pallas in Libra. Constantly thinking ahead, making sure that you are up to date on things and not letting things go unnoticed, I would say, with this combination. Okay.
Okay. One job that I loved doing was I was an outside salesperson for a dealership of ADT, and I would have to knock on 100 doors a day for 3 years straight. And I got 100% commission, meaning if I didn't sell, I didn't get paid. So I got real good at convincing people to let me into their homes. And I would be in people's homes every single night that I worked. Now I didn't sell every night, of course. Sometimes I got into 2 homes a night, you know. But that's what I did. I knocked on people's doors and people let me into their homes. You know what kind of person you have to be for another person to let you into their home? You have to be a pretty good person, okay? And one other job I got is I've been an Uber driver, and I made a lot of money doing that sales job. And I had $37,000 in debt before I got the job. And in 3 years, I paid off my debt. And I got a company called Zero Debt Solutions to help me, and they shaved off like $13,000 for my $37,000 debt. So yeah, I was a mover and a shaker because I had to. I was in debt. And then I also got married at the last year in 2010. I got married. I started that job in 2007. I got married in 2010, and now I'm happily divorced. Thank God I'm not with her anymore. I'm an Uber driver now. I drive it occasionally, and I've been doing Uber this is my 7th year as an Uber driver, and I have over 16,000 rides, and my rating is 4.99 because I'm a great fucking guy. I know how to talk to people. Holy shit. She nailed it, didn't she? Yeah, she did. Hannah's wonderful. If you want a reading with her, book her. She's pretty good and she's pretty quick too.
Moving on to Scorpio. So Scorpio, of course, we've got Mars as the ruler of the 3rd. Mars is located in the 12th house of self-undoing, of hidden enemies, of hidden talents as well. So there could be some form of challenge here between you and siblings. Again, we go back to the whole sibling rivalry stuff. Could even be a case.
I already told you about my fucking bitch ass sister, right? The fucking bitch. She's irrelevant to me anymore. I don't love her anymore. Fuck her, man. Fuck her hard.
Of you experiencing quite intense loss from a very early age. I'm even considering here your father possibly.
My father passed away when I was 18 and a half years old. I worked at my dad's restaurant from 12 years old to 18 years old. My father died while he was trying to fix the dishwasher, and he got electrocuted under the dishwasher trying to fix it, and he fucking died.
Also, how the loss...
She nailed it. Look at her. She fucking nailed it. Hannah nailed it again.
...of your father may have contributed to challenges between you and your siblings or your cousins, right? Just basically immediate family members, I would say here. But then, you know what, it could also be a matter of you literally losing a sibling, right? So we think basically about grief and the whole grieving process, and we think about those deeper emotions and the intensity possibly of your anger there as well. Something about trapped anger or not fully expressing it, not fully connecting with it, but yet there is something there about anger beneath the surface, I would say, with that combination. Now, another way to possibly look at this, however, is that this could manifest as you partaking in spiritual practices, right? So to consider how certain spiritual practices have really helped you throughout your own healing journey, through your recovery process. Hey, you know what, this could also be that there have been addictive tendencies with you over the years, right? Maybe you have battled some kind of addiction throughout.
Yeah. Before my dad passed away, I started using drugs, man. I was smoking pot every day, drinking alcohol when I was like in my senior year in high school. She fucking nailed it. She sees everything with my chart. Hannah's wonderful if you want to do a reading with her. Yeah, I was fucking doing drugs up until I got clean, as I said earlier, and with my nodal return when I was 27 years old. I got clean and sober, and I became spiritual. And I started believing in God, and now I don't believe in God anymore because I know God. I have a personal relationship with God. I've been praying and meditating for over 30 years now to a higher power. I call my higher power the divine right now. Occasionally I'll use God, but mainly the divine is what I say. And yeah, the divine gets me through every day. I pray, meditate. I pray unceasingly to the divine every day. Throughout my whole day, I'm praying to the divine. And that's how I do my life.
Your life, or it's that you have battled your inner demons, right? You've had to address your inner demons in some way, shape, or form. So we think about great psychological change.
She's nailing it.
All right, moving on to Sagittarius in the fourth. Jupiter, of course, does rule the fourth. Then Jupiter, we go back to Jupiter being in Virgo, conjunct the ascendant. Now, planets conjunct the ascendant can give us some indication as to how we were born. So I wonder about a miracle. I wonder about a blessing. I wonder about your birth.
I was born cesarean section, bitch.
Feeling a bit like a lucky break, or like there was some kind of luck or chance involved. Also, it could be a case
I shouldn't be here.
Your health really coming into the equation here. So yeah, we think about how your birth may have required extra support, extra attention for health reasons. But also, this could also manifest as you being born into a rather religious home, a religious household, and those religious principles, values, teachings,
Yeah, I was born into a religious household, all right. My mom was a Greek Orthodox person. She went to the Greek Orthodox church and she forced me to go to church. And I was a Greek Orthodox for many, many, many years. And then when I got clean, I still went to church with my mom. And about, I think like 10 years, 15 years later, I went to confession. And then when I got divorced from my bitch wife, I went to confession again. And the priest says to me, he goes, "You've been clean 20 years and you did it without the church? I can't believe it. I can't believe that you got clean without the church." I'm like, "Yeah, bitch. I don't need your fucking church to get clean. I have the divine. God is with me. What do I need a church for? Fucking A.
We were really pushed, right? Because with Sagittarius is such an opinionated sign, quite the preacher. Maybe even for you, you consider yourself, John, to be a rather religious person. You may...
No, I'm not religious. I'm spiritual. And the difference between religious people and spiritual people is this. Religious people are afraid to go to hell. And spiritual people have been to hell and don't want to go back.
Even have set out on a path of becoming a religious figure yourself, right? So that's a possibility. Or, of course, this can manifest as you becoming a professor, a teacher, a mentor. With Mercury even involved, of course, Mercury is also very close to Jupiter there. We do see this distribution of information, this wanting to share and spread a message.
That's what my YouTube channel is all about. Know Thyself right now. Know Thyself now with John Tzortzis.
With others. Again, doing so practically, right? I'm even thinking about you possibly working within the medical field, for example. But still, yes, with the Sagittarius influence in the fourth, could even be a case of you coming from a rather large family, or it could be a case of you moving a great deal throughout your life. You know all too well of relocating or being open to new experiences. Of course, even having work lined up, maybe that's important to you too, because Jupiter is in this work-orientated sign of Virgo.
I move all the time. Every 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years, I move. I can't stand in one place. That's because I got Jupiter. That's because Sagittarius is in my fourth house.
All right, moving on then to
sometimes I move in 2 years or 1 year.
So Capricorn is located
once
in the
I've
fifth.
moved in
Saturn
like
is the ruler
4 months,
of the fifth, of course,
and then I
located
move back.
in the eighth. All right. I am curious about children here. I am curious about your desires even to have children or
no children. I have books
children,
instead.
Right, about children. Capricorn there can be an indicator of you seeking to have children more later on in life. So maybe it is that as you got older, you decided to have children. Could also be an indicator of just deciding not to have children, or having that decision made for you. Whether this be your partner not wanting to have children or hasn't been able to. So those would be a couple
My wife
of
couldn't have children. She had cysts in her ovaries.
Though I even think with Saturn being in the 8th, there does seem to be something, as I was trying to suggest a moment ago, transformative about children. Possibly disagreements, possibly this challenge. I want to be really sensitive here. Could be a case of the loss of a child, right? So that could be a serious trauma in your life. Could also be a serious trauma that happened within your family's life. But whatever the case may be, I am thinking about you possibly being in couples therapy, or possibly just needing support, needing psychological support with Saturn in the 8th. Psychological support to maybe work.
Before I got divorced, we had 5 marriage therapists. Now I'm happily divorced. I'm happy I'm not with her anymore. Oh my God, she was such a fucking bitch. All we did was fight.
Through your fears, possibly fears of intimacy, fears of closeness. Could be a case of fears of abandonment, or worrying that others will let you down, or it could be that there's some form of like a blockage, basically. A blockage that in a way keeps you from connecting. It keeps you from connecting on a deeper level, not just with possibly your spouse or a partner, a lover, but just with others in general, to really explore your vulnerabilities or to explore your deeper emotions. Now, with that being said, another way to look at this is that Perhaps your children have transformed your life in a way where you actually feel stronger, you feel resilient. You becoming a father could have just transformed you completely. Or it's more so that over the years you have explored the very relationship you have or had with your father. So we think about the 5th house through a lens of the inner child. Blockages there to do with play. Blockages there to do with fun and creativity and self-expression. So again, maybe this is where we notice that as you approach your 2nd Saturn return, there could be some themes tied to your inner child, and there could be some psychological and emotional challenge / growth that will occur whenever you're able to tap into those parts of yourself, right? So yes, connecting with your inner child.
I'm going to link my inner child video below. Watch the inner child video. It's a great video. I get in touch and you can hear me, and you can hear my inner child talking. Okay.
And maybe a way to look at this is connecting with those parts that were shut off, right? That were silenced to a large extent. And I also want to mention, with this combination, it could be a case of when it comes to romance and love, and when we think about romantic relationships basically tied to the 5th house, this could be where we see you literally choosing that you want to be single, because Saturn is in Aries, this singular sign. But it also could be about when you enter a romantic relationship, you realize that there are some intimacy blockages, and so you have at some point you have worked through those things, or it's that as you approach your 2nd Saturn return, those very dynamics could come back up to the surface, kind of asking you to take a closer look again. All right, moving on. We've got Aquarius in the 6th. So Aquarius in the 6th, yes, is a big indicator of you needing freedom and independence when it comes to your day-to-day work. You experimenting with new strategies, schedules, routines, establishing different new habits, almost out of the blue. Could also be a case of you being quite the team player with co-workers, colleagues. Maybe your work involves technology strongly. It involves innovation strongly. And what we see here is that one of the rulers of the 6th, Uranus, is located in the 1st in Virgo. So we do see the innovation possibly within the health sector. Innovation when it comes to being of service, helping others. Innovation even when it comes to food, right? Diet, hygiene, cleanliness, organization, or it's even that small animals or pets that you have, they transform your life. They have transformed your life in some capacity, right? Because Uranus is also conjunct Pluto, and there is this transformative element to Pluto. And I'm also going to say here that perhaps the work you do, it involves small animals. That is a possibility with this combination. Still, with Aquarius in the 6th, there's something here about giving back, making a difference, just wanting to make the world a better place, but starting within your everyday life to do that. It's all about the small steps that you take within your own life as a way to contribute to the bigger picture, and maybe you know of that all too well. And the other thing to add, of course, is Saturn, which is also the ruler of your 6th. It's in Aries, it's in the 8th, so maybe your work, right, your occupation also involves large sums of money. It involves business ventures. It involves managing other people's accounts, insurance, debts, taxes, really having to be responsible when it comes to shared resources, okay? combining resources. Business could be a big part of this. Enterprise could be a big part of this. Self-employment, possibly starting your own company or business or firm, but you're the one who is, of course, leading that. So that is interesting. Plus, you know what I'm also going to say with this combination, with you running a company or a business, when it comes to work in general, I think that with Aquarius in the 6th, you're always thinking ahead. You're always innovating the space. And I also see this as you often becoming caught up in details. Could be minor details that you fixate on or that can get in the way at times of you possibly seeing the bigger picture, because that's another thing with all the Virgo. Maybe this is also where over the years you've learned to really delegate, you've learned to reach out to people for help and to see that it is about that team effort, right? Because I do see this equally as you being quite the team player with Aquarius in the 6th. Still, there is always that element of surprise with Aquarius in the 6th, and we also think about how Uranus is in the 1st house, so maybe this can manifest as you experiencing some health challenges or concerns. So the unexpected regarding your body, regarding your appearance, regarding your health, those are some possibilities that have perhaps unfolded for you over the years. Now, let's move on then. We've got Pisces in the 7th. All right, so we touched, of course, on Pisces in the 7th and how that can manifest as you being rather idealistic, wearing rose-colored glasses, seeing what you want to see in other people, maybe getting a bit lost in a dream or a fog when it comes to how you connect, maybe just losing yourself slightly within the other. So the North Node, of course, traveling through the 7th over the next year or so, that's a good way for you to address those very areas, those qualities within yourself, so that you can hopefully just recognize them and then stop them or see what you can change. And equally, we can look at this as you being attracted to partners who are sensitive. Could be that they are pretty creative, artistic, poetic, or something that is difficult to fully define about them potentially. And also you appreciate compassion and kindness and generosity in partners. And this can also be about business partners too. So it's not just about the spouse, it's not just about marriage here. This is also about business. And with Jupiter being in Virgo, of course, yes, there is an element of you seeking to put your best foot forward. You seeking to be that spouse, that partner who shows up in practical ways for the other. And with Neptune also in Scorpio, there's also that depth, that emotional depth, that emotional intimacy that you seek within your relationships. Trust, I think, is really vital here. Okay, moving on. We've got Aries in the 8th. So, with Aries in the 8th, this one could be that it could be a possibility of anger being beneath the surface, frustration being beneath the surface. And so this is where you experience great transformation and renewal. So by you tapping into your anger or your frustration, well, that could open up this whole psychological journey for you where you are able to identify more strongly with your shadow, with your hidden facets. And also, this is about you standing up for yourself. This is about you advocating for what you want to a large extent, especially because CHIRON is there, a lot of healing and everything else that we did talk about earlier. But healing is a part of your journey here. And then with the North Node says, this is your destiny, right? Follow this. This is the path, which can really help you. And then with Saturn there, yes, this is also where you're going to experience the most harsh lessons, I guess, right? It can be quite a challenging energy to work with, okay, when we think about Saturn. But hey, it's also about overcoming adversity. It's also about great determination, grit, and resilience. showing up, by doing the work, by putting in the effort, you transform, and then you feel really respected. It's like you respecting yourself. It's that self-respect basically with Saturn in Aries, showing integrity, showing honor and virtue. So to show honor and virtue when it comes to the likes of intimacy, when it comes to shared accounts, when it comes to other people's money, other people's finances, and how you manage those things. Okay, Mars then, of course, does reside in the 12th. So with that being said, this could be a case of your transformations also involving creativity, right? Tapping into your creative gifts. So that could be a thing with Leo in the 12th, with the 12th house representing hidden gifts. Maybe there is a creative gift there that is ready to be opened up or awakened within you, and you may find that because your Mars return is currently going on right now, and this is of course a part of a whole 2.5 year cycle, you may find that you can feel this nudge. It's like, oh, okay, this is what inspires me, this is what I'm enthusiastic about, this is what brings me joy and happiness. Plus, you know what, this could also be a case of foreign lands, retreating, escaping. You know, those are the kinds of areas that transform you as well. Okay, so moving on to Taurus in the 9th. Taurus in the 9th house indicates that your worldviews, your beliefs can be very fixed, and it can take you a long time to change your mind, to budge, to listen to other people. And we've talked about this, right? We've discussed the religious side to the 9th house earlier, and you even being very devoted to your faith, which of course that's great. But I also equally think that there have been challenging times throughout your life in which your very faith has been challenged and tested. And maybe there has been an element of you deciding that you have outgrown a particular faith, or you have outgrown particular beliefs. So with Uranus traveling through the 9th, maybe this has came up, right? These themes have came up. And just a reminder, Uranus has been traveling through your 9th over the past number of years, all right? So more recent times. Still, with Taurus in the 9th, it can also suggest that when it comes to what's more wider, the bigger picture, what's more abstract, those areas, you're very good at grounding those areas and making them very practical in ways that other people understand, right? It's about simplifying abstract concepts and ideas and being able to deliver that information in such a way where people can grasp it and they can learn something, right? They can take maybe some practical advice from you, or they can feel like you were there to support them. So that's interesting, because what we see is that Venus, right, so Venus also rules the 9th. Venus is located in Virgo, so we go back to Virgo, and with Venus being in Virgo, this could be that your way of showing beauty, or your way of being social, is that of practicality. So to be able to possibly be there for other people, relate to other people by being very hands-on and offering them your advice, offering them your practical tips, whatever they may be, whatever they may look like. And with Mercury naturally very nearby, you're able to communicate what you see very, very well. So this could be a case of you earning money, essentially, for your knowledge, right? I even imagine you deciding that, yeah, I want to commit myself, devote myself to a particular program or course. With Taurus there is a follow through. There's a strong follow through. There is an endurance, a stamina, and there is also a steadiness. There's a slowness here. So
in about October 2023, I took a Astro Butterfly. I signed up for a course with Astro Butterfly, and I took a 10-week astrology course, and it got done around the end of December. And then, like a few weeks later, there was another course, an advanced astrology course, 10 weeks that I took in January. And then I think like around March or April or something like that, after I completed that course, I took another 3-week Chiron course. And yeah, that's why I can do readings. If somebody wants to do a reading, just look at my website, restoringourworldtoparadise.com, and look for the readings that I do. And one can get a reading from me. I also know numerology, and I'm familiar with human design as well. She's doing a great job in this reading. I love it. I love it. Hannah is awesome.
To slowly build on your credentials, to slowly build on your skills, your expertise.
In 2017 or 17, yeah, I went to Second City in improv classes, and I took 5 courses there, and I graduated from improv. I think I graduated in January, February 2018, and yeah, so I'm a funny guy.
You're very, very practical in how you show up in the world because you have so much earth, right? So when we consider the practical side of things, this could look like you being the organizer, being the planner, being the one who is working a lot, you earning most of the finances. This could be that you even, hey, it could be a case of you connecting strongly with your body and needing that, right? Really needing to connect with your body and to be concerned about the very condition of your body and how you look after it. I even think about you to a large extent needing to be out in nature, connecting with the earth. Heck, perhaps you need to connect with the earth. You need to be conscious of how you look after your body, especially because you're always thinking. Though, I guess another way to think about you being practical throughout your life is even to consider how you can apply the knowledge that you learn, how you can apply your experiences to your everyday life. This is about you being able to navigate the world in a way where you're being efficient. You are being a problem solver. Again, it goes back to this self-reliance. You can adapt even really well, I think, to changing circumstances after, of course, panicking or possibly freaking out a little bit there. Because with Virgo energy, Virgo likes to be in control. Okay, moving on. What we further see is Gemini is in the 10th, so we talked a lot about Gemini earlier. So with Gemini in the 10th, there is this multifaceted element to your career, whether this be you juggling 2 different roles at once or many roles at once.
When my dad passed away in 1987, I was about 18 and a half years old, and my mom, she stayed in the restaurant with my Uncle Peter and Chris, the other guy that was the partner, for about a year, or maybe less than a year. And then she decided to sell her share of the restaurant to Peter and Chris, and she got out of the restaurant. And she also got money from the life insurance from my father passing away, getting electrocuted under the dishwasher. So she bought apartment buildings. So since 1990 up until 2024, that's I think about 34 years, 33 years, something like that. I was an apartment manager. I was a property manager, a building manager, and also a maintenance guy. I did building maintenance too for like 30, let's say 33 years. And I also had other jobs I did on top of that, having a Gemini midheaven. So I had that job, and that job, I didn't do that many hours a week. Maybe I would do like anywhere from 5 to 15 hours, 20 hours at the most, maybe a week. Maybe it depended. If I had like a bunch of like apartments that needed to be rented, and I had to fix more than one, I'd be there longer, you know. So that's why the job that I had with knocking knocking on doors, it was flexible, you know, and I got and I had a flexible job, and I also worked for relocation as a relocation agent for like 3 or 4 companies, where I would rent apartments. I would find the people apartments, but those were like seasonal jobs, and they weren't like that. They lasted like just for a year, maybe, you know, or less than a year. One of them lasted more than that. I became a on the side. I became like a property manager on him too, as I was working in the apartment building, you know. So I always had 2 jobs.
And needing to have a creative side going on, or being able to tap into your creative side, needing to be flexible,
And now I'm
needing
being
to
creative with my
change
YouTube
things,
channel.
switch things up often. Could also be a case of you having many different jobs throughout your life. But you see,
I've
when
had,
we go
I've
back
had
to Mercury
tons of
being
jobs in
in
my
the sign
life.
of Virgo, this could manifest as certain roles and positions involving writing, critiquing, research, marketing, management, bookkeeping, editing, data processing, being an...
For the apartment buildings, I had to do bookkeeping and writing. I have a book that I wrote no, not August, February 2018. I published WATERSLIDE Time Machine Portals. It's available on Amazon. And now I have 2 books in the editing process, and I started writing another book about 3 weeks ago. So, yeah.
analyst, being a proofreader. Efficiency really comes to mind here. Being an assistant, or just making sure that you provide excellent service in general. Okay. Right. So then what we see here is that so Cancer rules the 11th. With Cancer in the 11th, I do see this as you preferring to have more of a close-knit circle of friends. I see this as you being quite protective within groups and needing to suss groups out to a large extent, needing to feel like you're safe and secure before you just open up or share of yourself possibly. And then of course with the moon being in Virgo there is an element of you being that friend who supports via what you do, how you can help, or it's that your actual friendship dynamics involve this helpfulness. This could also manifest as your hopes and dreams being strongly tied to family, home, comfort, security, physical security and emotional security, okay? And then with the moon, again, we go back to the moon being in Virgo. We see the small steps that you can put into place. It's about those small habits that you create, which could very well add up to you achieving a particular dream or wish that you have for the future. And I'm also thinking here about how you can be very protective of people within your communities, within groups and teams, being quite tenacious, possibly even being quite business savvy as well, I would argue, with Cancer in the 11th. And you wanting to form networks that are based more on connection, but also it's about this mutual respect regarding the services that are being offered. Plus, I think this is about you surrounding yourself with friends or within so being a part of communities where there is politeness, where good manners are shown. All right, so lastly, what we have here is with Leo in the 12th, right? So Leo in the 12th, we did touch on this earlier, but it could be a case of a big part of your self-expression being locked away, so to speak. It could be a case of you hiding a part of yourself, or you presenting as more, could be more quiet, more shy, more reserved. Even the sun, right? The sun is the ruler of your 12th. It's in Virgo, so we go back to this Virgo influence. So you could showcase and display a quiet confidence, right? It's because it's like, sure, Mars may be in the 12th, and that can suggest that anger can build up and there could be pent up frustration there. Especially if, for example, you really want to say what's upset you, or you want to address, you want to face a challenging confrontation. But I also think that there is that part of you that can go there, so to speak. So what I mean by this is you may not necessarily outwardly show your frustration, but maybe it just takes the wrong situation to happen or a certain trigger to occur, and then things come up, right? There's possibly what feels like a bit of an explosion, or it can just be very, very different to how you normally present. So what I'm trying to get at here is that you don't put up with drama. You don't put up with people's bad manners and their ill treatment of others. And again, I think what this brings it back to is that of being protective of your loved ones, being protective of others. On the other hand, I also can't help but think that what I mentioned has required a lot of spiritual work or inner work. So getting to this point in life where you're able to say, no, I will not be walked over. I will not be treated like that. I will not be talked to like that. Don't mistake my kindness for weakness here, right? But equally, being able to know when to just walk away, when to not give people your energy. It's like to not give your power away, basically, to not give into people who just try to wind you up or get a response. They're trying to get a reaction from you. See, the 12th house is about hidden enemies, and so there could be this thing of people testing you, people trying to test your patience and push you, and it could also be a case of your own self-doubt at times creating confusion. There could be this lack of confidence within yourself, these insecurities, these fears that you've possessed, possibly more so in the past. But this, again, is where I think a lot of inner work has unfolded. I think this is about you facing life with great courage. So what's coming through here is to be confident within yourself, but to not be arrogant. So to know the difference between confidence and arrogance. Heck, with so much Virgo in the first house, I do see this as you showcasing a lot of humility within situations, but that within itself is confidence. So seeing that you don't necessarily have to be the loudest in the room, the loudest person in the room, to gain attention and approval from others. And if you find yourself being desperate for that approval, I think a part of this is going within yourself and asking yourself, okay, why is that happening? Where is that stemming from? And then I can't help but think that a part of this validation and approval, I'm going to suggest here, it could be tied to the very relationship you have or had with your father. Okay, John, so that concludes your Access All Areas reading. Thank you so much for booking again.
Thanks,
If you
Hannah.
have a follow-up
You're the
question,
best.
let me know. And if you have any feedback you
Book
would
a
like to
reading
share
with
about
Hannah,
your
everybody.
experience, it would be greatly appreciated. Anyways, that is me. I wish you a lovely week or weekend wherever you are in the world.
Happy.
I will catch you on the next video on Hannahs Elsewhere or via email. Bye!
Have a desire to know thyself more? Book a transformational session with me, and you could book an astrology session, a numerology session, human design, and more. Check out the links below and do a one-on-one transformational session with me, John Tzortzis. Looking forward to seeing you.